In a world where monster hunters are acclaimed as heroes, Xian Haixing has been treated as a pariah due to his ordinary appearance. As if that wasn't bad enough, a pack of monsters attacks his neighborhood the day he discovers he's dying of an unknown illness. With his sister's sacrifice, Jason survives and somehow awakens to become a poisoner, a rare hunter with toxic healing abilities. But will his poisonous powers cure Jason's illness and guarantee the normal life he's always dreamed of? To find out, let's start the story anew. In the year 2032, the world changed drastically overnight when semi-god superhumans and messiahs appeared among the population. They had video game-like abilities and gathered to enter dungeons. These superpowered humans who hunted monsters for a living called themselves hunters. They fight beings from another dimension, which makes them rich but complicates things for regular people. As monsters emerge from the gates that connect Earth to the dungeons, people without power die defenseless. And until the hunters arrive, it seems this event would be Earth's downfall. However, saving people was merely a byproduct of their true objective. They only want to hunt monsters, earn money, and become stronger. No matter what their goals were, their impact was enough to make them the protagonists of the new world. But for our protagonist, there's no point in being a hero or having a new world when his own world is crumbling right before him. Xian Haixing travels on the bus in silence, contemplating what the doctor just told him. He's terminally ill and could die at any moment due to his body's addiction to poison. While trying to decide what to do with his diagnosis, his phone rings with a call from his older sister. She asks him where he is, and he tells her he's currently in Gaibundong and on his way home. The reason she called is to inform him she's working overtime today, so she won't be home for a while. This isn't the first time she's worked overtime, and Haixing thinks she's working too much. But all her plans are for him, so she doesn't mind. Then, she asks him what the doctor told him about his illness. Haixing thinks for a moment, then lies, telling her that the results showed he has nothing serious. She can't discover he's terminally ill, and worst of all, it's an illness the doctor has never seen before. His entire body is addicted to poison, and it's a miracle he's still alive right now. While the miracle of his body enjoying the poison is one thing, Haixing was more focused on the fact that the doctor told him there was no possibility of him surviving. The older man could do nothing more than bow his head and apologize. Haixing ends his call with his sister and returns to despair. But once again, his thoughts are interrupted by a loud alarm, ringing on all phones simultaneously. People on the bus start to panic, and some wonder if they should try to evacuate as soon as possible. Haixing checks his phone and sees an emergency message stating there's been a double-gate explosion in Gaibundong and Gaibundong. He then has a delayed realization that Gaibundong is exactly where he is now. But that fact comes too late as he looks out the bus window and sees enormous red eyes staring back at him. Monster Frog is outside the bus and pushes its tongue through the window, stabbing someone at the other end of the bus, killing them immediately. The man's wife and the rest of the people on the bus can only watch in shock as the man slowly starts to die from the poisonous tongue protruding from his chest. And no one can truly believe what's happening. There's a moment of silence as people's brains begin to react before absolute chaos erupts. Some immediately start running out of the bus, while others try to pull out the grieving woman who is attempting to stay by her dead husband's side. Elsewhere, at an undisclosed company, Haixing's sister, Songhua, finishes her work and prepares to take a break with one of her coworkers. The two women head to the break room with 2 hot drinks, and Songhua's coworker immediately starts the conversation, calling her amazing. People her age should be going out and having fun. But instead, she's working overtime to pay her brother's hospital bills. Songhua smiles and disagrees with the woman's words. After all, he's her only family, so she has to take care of him. The woman falls silent for a moment, but laughs softly, admiring their relationship. She doesn't notice that the smile has completely vanished from Songhua's face, but she does when the cup falls from Songhua's hand, spilling everywhere on the floor. The shocked young woman is staring at the news report, detailing the gate explosion that occurred in Gaibundong and Gaibundong. Her dear brother is there right now, and is in danger. Back in Gaibundong, there's nothing but death and destruction in the area. Somehow, Haixing is alive, but not for long, as one of the monsters has already caught him by the leg. Around him, anyone who could help has been killed, and he doesn't have many options left. His phone vibrates wildly with messages from his worried sister, but He doesn't even get a chance to respond as the monster drags him toward death. In this situation, he's furious and powerless, but he doesn't want to stand still. Instead, he'll try to die fighting, hoping he'll be given some kind of Medal of Honor that should definitely be a great help to his older sister. With no other option, he grabs a piece of glass nearby, ignoring the fact that it cuts his hands, and prepares to give his last bit of energy fighting this frog. Something like this is the last gift he can give his sister. He provokes the frog to attack, and it immediately obeys, lifting Haizin into the air and preparing to eat him whole. Haizin has no plans of becoming this beast's next meal, and instead wants to show the beast what it feels like to be attacked, just as it did to all the people it attacked. The frog drops Haisei, letting him fall into its mouth, but he seizes the opportunity to stab its eye with the piece of glass. The frog screams in pain and thrashes, throwing Hastings away and causing him to momentarily black out as he hits the ground. When he opens his eyes again, confused about what happened, he sees the monster staring menacingly at him. Instead of being a final blow, it seems his attack only served to anger the beast further. The poisonous frog wraps its large tongue around Hasten, this time ensuring he can't escape. It then drags him into its mouth, swallowing him in one gulp. With nothing left to hope for, all Hasten can do is pray that the association will eliminate the frog in the end. As Hasten slides down the frog's throat into its stomach, he wonders if this is truly the end. Accepting his death, all he can think about is his loving sister, who gave everything to take care of him. Despite his deformities and his illness, she always loved him and did everything to protect him. The thought of the woman who gave her life to make him better makes him realize he doesn't want to die. At that moment, as thoughts of survival fill his head, something changes in his body. Outside, the frog stops and begins to tremble in pain. Whatever is happening to Haisen is affecting it too, and it can barely withstand the energy. Then, in a burst of white light, the beast explodes, leaving Hazen completely intact as he falls to the ground. News of the double portal opening has spread, and significant damage is expected as a result of the disaster. But instead of focusing on the true impact of the disaster, the news is praising President Guggenprime, who sent a special team to control the situation. This is the direct response of the Glory Guild, which is the association in charge of the Gaibondong district. Despite the bloodshed spreading through the streets, the news is only filled with praise for the Glory Guild and its ability to intervene first to confront any disaster. While a woman runs through a bloody street filled with corpses, the president personally comes out to apologize to anyone who has been injured by the incident. The woman is Songhua, and as she risks her life running through the blood-filled streets, President Guggen states they are doing everything possible to control the situation and urges everyone to try and remain in a safe place. He then assures everyone with a smile that the Glory Guild will always protect them. Haisen suddenly wakes up, covered with the remains of the poisonous frog. The last thing he remembers is being swallowed by the monster, but somehow he's still alive. As he gets up and his senses begin to recover, he hears someone familiar calling his name. He immediately recognizes the voice as his older sister's and responds to her. The voice is very faint, but it's definitely her voice. As he forces himself to stand, he wonders why she came to such a dangerous place. He manages to get up and runs in the direction he heard her calling from. Songhua desperately calls for him, but instead of her brother's voice, she hears a disgusting crunching sound coming from a nearby alley. She decides to take a chance and calls for her brother in the cramped space, but instead finds herself in a space full of monsters devouring a corpse. As she tries to slowly back away, her feet break a piece of glass behind her, causing all the monsters to notice her at the same time. She nervously begins to back away as the monsters approach her, before breaking into a full speed run, fleeing the deadly beasts as they chase her. She runs with all her might down the empty street, but eventually reaches a dead end in a destroyed part of the road. She starts to cry, thinking about her brother and wondering if she was too late to save him. She tries not to lose hope, but the best she can do in her current situation is close her eyes and wait for the monsters to devour her. Just before one manages to pounce on her, something appears out of nowhere and strikes the frog into the air, throwing it far away. Songhua turns towards the familiar voice and sees Haisen, bloody and angry, holding a metal pipe in his hands. It seems the Glory Guild won't be appearing soon, so people have to take matters into their own hands. He tells Songhwa to stay as far away from them as possible so he can come and save her. But normally, a regular human-facing monsters would be an absurd fight. However, Xian Hasten felt that somehow he could win this. Firstly, the small dark toads surrounding them were physically, their main weapon is poison, and they are quite average in terms of physical strength. Secondly, he had grown stronger for some reason. There were no physical changes in his body, but he felt he had become more powerful. The third reason he felt so confident is due to a small curiosity he had while unconscious. The large toad that swallowed him was full of poison, so he should have died as soon as any part of the monster touched him. But instead of dying, he became stronger, and his wounds seemed to heal. That made Haisen confident that the toad's main form of attack wouldn't work on him. All these facts together made him sure that even though the fight wasn't entirely in his favor and there were many frogs around him, he could emerge victorious. This false confidence was enough for Hasen to lower his guard. A large monster, bigger than any he had seen so far, appears behind him and strikes him with a single slap from its giant hand. He goes flying into a wall and is immediately knocked unconscious. Through his tired, battered eyes, he can barely see his sister about to be attacked by the same enormous beast that threw him through the air. He's lucky he didn't die, but Songhwa doesn't look like she'll be as fortunate. He shouts for her to move away so he can come and save her, but his arm is surely broken from the last attack. She can't bear to hear him in pain and tells him to stay back and run away. He doesn't listen and continues screaming for her to get clear, but it's already too late as the monster swings its arm towards her. In her last moments, she turns and apologizes to her brother just as the giant claw falls upon her, splattering her blood across the street. Someone like her, who spent her days working hard for him, shouldn't die like this. At least, that's what he thought. But there's nothing he can do to change what has happened. Hazen falls to his knees in shock, wondering what happened and why his sister would fight for him. He's gonna die anyway, and she had a whole life ahead of her. As rage builds in his body, he begins to feel something forming around him. It looks like a giant red snake that emerged from his body and moves according to his will. He doesn't know what this thing is, but his body agrees on one thing: the frog needs to die. The snake swiftly passes him and pierces through the frog in a single strike, killing it instantly. High atop a building, a woman observes the entire scene with a smile on her face. The boy managed to summon a red viper despite being newly awakened. She wonders if he could do something she's been wanting to see for a long time. To do that, he'll first need to control his power. After hearing the loud sound of his summoning, all the monsters have started to stalk him, and he'll probably need help eliminating the giant toad heading towards him and his sister. Hasten gently places his injured sister on the ground as an army of toads rushes towards him. Despite the chaos, he has sworn he won't let his sister die because of him. She gave her life for him, and he can't let that be in vain, no matter what. With his new determination, he uses his hood to cover her and walks towards the monsters with bare hands. Songhwa's breathing is shallow, so he can't waste time defeating these monsters. All he has to do is hold out until the hunters arrive to save them. He looks toward the giant frog and prepares to attack. But before he can lunge, his body unexpectedly gives out. This must be a side effect of the snake he summoned, and he can barely move anymore. He can barely muster the strength to fight as a large monster tongue lashes out at him, seeking to kill him in a single strike. Just before the blow can reach him, someone steps in and blocks the attack with one hand. As she holds the frog's enormous tongue to prevent it from killing him, she explains that he overused his strength to eliminate the smaller beasts, and that has caused his body to give out. However, he still managed to destroy a black ether monster with a single movement which at least impressed her. She then introduces herself as Kirill, and although she has much to tell him, she first has to clear up the situation around them. Then, with incredible strength, she grabs Hasim by the neck and tosses him like a rag out of harm's way. She tells him to go and wait with his sister as she turns to face the large group of monsters that are approaching and immediately takes a huge attack from the giant toad. However, she's too fast for it to catch her. Kirill leaps onto the toad's arm and positions herself in front of his face, ready to launch a deadly attack. It responds by flicking its tongue at her, trying to knock her out of the sky. But she dodges so quickly it almost seems like she teleported. Then she reappears directly above, charging Mega Punch that crushes the monster so hard it explodes in a burst of guts and blood. Haisen watches in awe as she demonstrates the strength of an S-rank hunter. If he had even half that strength, then his older sister wouldn't have been hurt. His thoughts are interrupted when the woman appears behind him and asks what he's thinking about so intensely. He lies, saying nothing's wrong, and Kirill smiles faintly before telling him that his sister is fine. That pulls him out of his thoughts, and he looks at her in surprise as she continues speaking. If Kirill had arrived even a little later and didn't know how to heal, it would have been dangerous for her, but fortunately, she reached Songhua just in time to save her. Hearing that his sister might live, especially after he had almost given up, he collapses in tears. He turns and realizes he couldn't see any trace of Songhua's injuries. Somehow, this woman who appeared out of nowhere had managed to save his family. As he cries tears of joy, the woman tells him it's too soon to be happy. After all, he's in the same state and still acting like he's about to die. For now, however, she assures him he has a long way to go before he can die. Haesin asks what she means, and she gives him a soft smile before assuring him that he too can live. She'll tell him the details after getting rid of the remaining monsters around them. As she turns to leave, Haesin calls out to her to wait a moment. He wants to know if he can really become as strong as her now that she has promised him he can live. He doesn't want to be manipulated by others anymore and wants to become someone who can protect. His words make Kirill smile, and as a reward, she decides to show him something cool. She heads towards the furious stampede of monsters and prepares a special technique, which is the only technique she has with a name attached. A large black cloud begins to form in her hand, and a toxic mist gathers around her as she calls its name, Poison Rain. Then, the cloud unleashes a beam of light, sending light into the sky, causing the clouds above them to swirl and change to a destructive purple color. As the environment around them changes at her will, she tells him that this is the level he must aspire to if he wants her to consider him strong. Then it starts to rain, but it's not normal rain. As each drop falls from the sky, every monster it touches begins to scream in pain and melt away until they disappear. As the rain cuts through the monsters and annihilates them, Haesin realizes that hunters are truly terrifyingly strong. Then Kirill turns to him and answers his question from before. She promises him he will become the strongest hunter in the world. Much later, the two return to Haesin's house, where Kirill seems to be testing a very strange exercise with her new student. For some reason, she's holding him upside down by the ankle while also creating several large poisonous daggers around him. Haesin nervously asks if she's sure he's going to survive when this is her idea of training him. Finally, Kirill puts him down and bursts into laughter as he blushes with embarrassment. He truly thought he was going to die at that moment, but Kirill can't help but laugh. She never planned to kill him. Instead, she wants to plant something called black ether in him. Haesin had clearly never heard of that, so Kirill begins her explanation by asking if he knows about poisoners. After all, they're quite famous. In the past, they were one of the highest power classes in the hunter world, but after a certain incident, they all disappeared from the public eye, and after that, they became hated by the public, known as the traitors of humanity. And Kirill, his mentor, is one of the notorious poisoner villains. Jason quickly apologizes, but she tells him it's fine. Besides, it's not as if he was wrong about anything he said. In fact, he doesn't even seem scared by the fact that the person in front of him is one of humanity's traitors. Haesin has no reason to be afraid, as she saved him and his sister. Moreover, with her power level, he had a feeling that she wasn't a normal hunter at all. Kirill confirms that poisoners are certainly not normal. A better description of them would be special. They have extraordinary abilities that appear as soon as they awaken. The mortality rate for a hunter in their awakening phase is 1%, which means it's very rare. For poisoners, on the other hand, most of them die while awakening, and the cause is always the same. Poisoners live their lives with poison in their bodies, and the poison worsens every day. So when the poison becomes strong enough that they can't handle it, their power consumes them. Haesin realizes that those symptoms sound very similar to his own. Kirill laughs and confirms that all the pain he went through was a symptom of his own awakening, and now he has become a poisoner. Before he can even process his thoughts, Kirill drags him out of the house. She still has many things to explain, so they have to go out for a practical demonstration. She takes him to the top of a skyscraper and stops at the edge. Then she asks him if he knows how poisoners survive having large quantities of poison in their system. The answer is that they treat the poison in their bodies at all times. With that basic explanation done, she takes a syringe full of venom and throws it into her chest, injecting it into her body. The healing abilities of a poisoner surpass what a normal person can imagine. Whether they are sleeping, eating, and even now, while they are talking, their healing powers are activated and constantly purify the poison in their systems. However, because of that, they cannot completely get rid of the poison, as purified poison is the source of their energy and is known as black ether. Hyzen nervously removes the poison syringe from his chest and asks if this is really safe. She assures him that it's not only safe, but also a gift for him, as he is now her student. Now the next step is to figure out what skills he needs to learn, and she decides it should be mobility, and what better skill to teach him than one of her own basic abilities, called Poison Steps. She starts trying to teach him how to use the new ability, but Hasten interrupts with a question. She once said Poison Rain was the only ability with a name, but now she's mentioning a bunch of other named abilities too. That makes Kirill freeze in embarrassment. Then she jumps to the nearest building to escape the question. She's definitely an amazing person, but somehow also incredibly thick-skinned. After an hour of jumping from building to building, Hysen sighs and gives up on being able to do something so amazing in the first place. His thoughts of despair make her return from her frantic run and come back to his side. It's quite irrational for him to give up without trying, since he'll never know if he can do something. Hysen tells her that she doesn't know because she's strong. He, on the other hand, was called multiple horrible insults throughout his life for things he couldn't control. Because of that, he's afraid to try, and while that might sound like an excuse, it's his reason for now moving forward. Kirill looks at him for a moment with an unusually serious expression. Then, she makes a decision. Her teaching style was wrong, and she needs to change her approach to all of this. She warns him that things will be harder for him from now on. Then she grabs him by the neck again. The most important thing for him to learn is his senses. If he concentrates all his senses on the soles of his feet, then he can explode those senses that swirl there, which will make him jump with explosive power. With that simple explanation, she holds him by the neck at the edge of the skyscraper. Then, without warning, she drops him from the side, causing him to free fall. She then leaves him with the wonderful advice that if he doesn't succeed, he'll die. As he falls to his death, Kirill repeats her advice, telling him to push off the tower wall and jump to the opposite building. That's easier said than done, but if he doesn't do something soon, he's definitely going to die. For now, at least he has to try. Hysen begins by concentrating all his power and focusing all his senses on the soles of his feet. As he falls, the harsh words of his peers fill his head, and he uses them as motivation to channel his power. At this moment, it's unreasonable to give up without trying. Then, with a simple push, he plants his feet on the tower wall and propels himself unexpectedly into flight. As he soars through the sky, he can barely believe he actually did it. But putting that aside, how is he supposed to land? Fortunately, Kirill appears beside him and extends her hand. He said it would be impossible, but now he sees that it's easier than he thought. As they both fall through the sky, she pulls him close for a hug and assures him that things are easier when you're prepared to die for it. His training continues after landing, as Kirill watches him with an expression so sharp that Hysen can almost feel it piercing him. Then things get even more intense when she opens her eye and brings her face dangerously close to his. He tries to scream as Kirill transfers some kind of device lens from her eye to his, all while smiling menacingly. With the transfer complete, with a bit of added physical aggression and trauma, Kirill explains that the device she gave him is a piece of cutting-edge equipment used by hunters. Although this particular prototype is much more advanced than anything the Glory Guild hunters have seen, there are several types of tools hunters use. There are attack-type weapons, gathering-type tools, and storage-type equipment. This one is known as a lens type, which is far superior to normal ones. Although Hasten appreciates the item, there had to be a gentler way to perform the transfer, right? But the fact that she's in such a hurry makes Hasten think she's about to leave, and he's entirely correct about that. It may not seem like it, but she's currently being pursued by others, and things will be dangerous if she stays in one place for too long. In fact, with the time she's spent by his side, things are already somewhat dangerous as they are. With their separation imminent, she gives him a light pat on the head and tells him to go find Dr. Jin. Jin is a genius, and also her partner, and he should be able to explain everything he's confused about now. The lens device will tell him the doctor's location, so all he has to do is follow it wherever it leads him. Finally, she leaves him one last gift, a ball surrounded by dark and dangerous energy. With that, she has given him everything she can, and taught him everything she wanted. Given how kind and gentle she is, Hyzen wonders why she's treated like a criminal. Before she leaves in a flash, he's still wondering why she's doing so much to help him. It's the first time anyone other than his sister has cared for him so much, and he feels more than grateful. That has shown him she's not an evil person, and that's why he wants to give his all to help her too. Despite his determination to help her, even with the most difficult tasks, she rejects his offer. He's not at a level where he can be of help to her, so for now, he has to focus on becoming stronger. He has to become so strong that he will never despair, no matter how powerful his enemies are. Once he is strong enough to protect everyone, then he can help her. He promises he will become that strong, and she praises him for his determined response. Judging by his firm expression, she can tell she won't have to worry about him anymore. With that final conversation, she leaps off the building, bidding him farewell. Thanks to her, in his life where he had nothing, he finally has a goal. The next day, the news is filled with reports about the devastation that occurred in Gyeongdong. The wealthier and more privileged Gupodong was successfully defended, but the Glory Guild completely ignored Gyeongdong. Naturally, there was a sharp increase in criticism, and stories of their negligence went viral online. Thousands of comments, ranging from curses to sorrow, emerged everywhere. And while countless arguments about the pros and cons took place for a few days, some people began to appear supporting the Glory Guild. Suddenly, all criticism disappeared, and they began to be praised as heroes. No one is more annoyed by that than Hyzen as he gets dressed to go out. After all, he was personally affected by the incident and almost lost his life. But there's a limit to how much a person can take before getting angry, so instead of focusing on that, he heads towards the location his lens indicates, leaving a note for his sister telling her he'll be back in just a few days. As he walks towards his destination, he takes a moment to look at the orb Kirill gave him. It looks like a core and must have belonged to the giant toad, but he has no idea what to do with it. She told him he should hold it in his hands and remember how it felt to use poison steps, and almost immediately, he begins to notice something happening. The core starts to be absorbed by his body, and a notification window appears on the lens device, showing how much the core has absorbed. He eventually manages to absorb it all, and the status window shows him how much black ether he managed to absorb. The amount is represented by a value called BA, showing that the amount in his body has increased from 1 to 1.5 BA. If he keeps absorbing this, maybe he can become stronger, but right now, he doesn't know how strong his body currently is. The lens responds by informing him that he is currently at the level of an E-rank knight, but if he continues absorbing black ether and surpasses a certain limit, then he will eventually possess the abilities of an S-rank knight. It seems Kirill wasn't bluffing when she said he could become the strongest hunter in the world. Before he can think more about the new information he has learned, he reaches a checkpoint and notices an argument right next to it. A man shouts at a frightened woman holding an injured child. It seems she's trying to reach a hospital, but a checkpoint suddenly appeared without any warning. She argues with the man as the child trembles in her arms, but that only makes the man raise his voice further and threaten her with violence. That makes the child start crying as the man continues to yell at them, throwing insults, telling them and calling them beggars, despite the situation. That's too much for Hyzen, and he finally intervenes to stop the conversation. He calls the man disgusting for acting arrogant in a situation like this, when those same officials were nowhere to be found when the gate initially burst. The man directs his anger towards our protagonist, as he approaches them with a calm stride. It's hilarious to him that these same people who weren't there when things were really dangerous suddenly come and try to take control of the situation. The angry man pulls out his bat and asks Hyzen if he knows exactly who he's talking to. But with the large badge on the man's vest, it's impossible for anyone not to recognize it. Everyone in Korea knows the pattern on the man's shirt, and everyone recognizes it as the symbol of the Glory Guild. The man approaches Hyzen, towering over him and trying to intimidate him. It's even worse that he's saying all these things, despite knowing who they are. However, Hyzen doesn't back down and encourages the man to try and hit him. This will be the first fight he's tried to start since he awakened. And as the man raises his hand to teach our protagonist a lesson, Hyzen realizes he's afraid. But just because he's afraid doesn't mean he's going to hide when he needs to. Fight. He catches the bat just as the man swings it at his face and easily breaks it in his hands. That makes the man realize he has made a serious mistake. John Hyzen had never exercised before, and while he threw a punch, he had an unstable stance and irregular breathing. The punch he threw was definitely one thrown by a novice, with no fighting experience, but a meta-human's body is on a different level compared to normal people. And even in his weak form, he was still strong enough to throw a punch that knocked the man unconscious. Instantly, as he lies on the ground, the man begins to weakly groan for help. Heisei can't help but mock him for complaining after a single punch, despite having acted so brave before. When the gates initially burst, people also screamed for help, but no one came to save them. They kept waiting, believing the Glory Guild would come to help them, but they never arrived. Heisen soon realizes he's wasting his time with someone who isn't listening, and turns to leave. The woman can't help but look at him in awe as he walks through the gate, completely unfazed by what just happened. After a long journey, Hessing finally arrives at the place his lens device has been directing him to. All there is a simple phone booth, and it's in such a secluded area that it's hard to imagine anyone using it. Heisen picks up the receiver and brings it to his ear, but it seems it doesn't even work. Then he presses a hidden button under the receiver, and the booth begins to emit a shrill sound. Then, a trapdoor opens beneath his feet, and he falls, landing violently on the floor of a strange white room. If he weren't a meta-human, the fall would have definitely killed him. But his troubles aren't over yet. He looks around the room and notices a closed door to his left. That should be the door he'll use to enter. But he can't figure out exactly where he needs to go. One thing is certain, however, and that is the fact that this Dr. Jin is no ordinary person. He tries to use his hand to lift himself off the ground, but it splashes into some kind of unknown liquid. He brings his hand to his face and realizes the liquid is actually blood. Before he can even wonder if he somehow got to the wrong place, a loud alarm sounds around him. It warns that he's changing the system to base defense mode, as several weapons emerge from the ceiling and all point towards him. Heisen panics for a moment, and the weapons fire a strange poisonous gas, filling the entire room and forcing him to cover his nose. He wonders why Dr. Jin is doing this, since he's supposed to be Kirill's close friend. His mind races as he accidentally inhales some of the poisonous gas, but then he remembers that he's a poisoner, and the poison doesn't affect him. In fact, it feels refreshing to breathe the toxic fumes. Then he hears someone's footsteps approaching the room he's in. On the other side of the door, a masked man looks into the poison-filled room. Anyone in there should be dead by now. He opens the door to check the results. As soon as he enters the room, Heisen takes him down to the floor and gets on top of him, ready to give the unknown man a beating. But before he can even begin the fight, he realizes that the man has already passed out with just that initial attack. Later, Heisen explains to the man how he got there. He understands the situation now that he knows Kirill helped him, but aside from that, he's more worried about the fact that Heisen tied him up. The ropes are really tight, and he's starting to suffocate. Heisen is still not convinced that the doctor won't try something as soon as he's released, but Dr. Jin assures him that everything will be fine. Firstly, those traps were specifically designed to kill non-poisoners. Anyone else would have died as soon as they inhaled the gas. Heisen is not impressed and tells the older man to stop joking. Firstly, since the place is set up so that normal people cannot enter, the only people who can reach his lab are hunters and Kirill. He's a very capable scientist, so naturally, many people needed his help. He was quite tough when he was younger, but he managed to endure the difficult days. Despite how important he was as a scientist and doctor, there were people pursuing him for his achievements. Assassins from other countries, people from dubious organizations, and even hunters from the association wanted to end his life. There were probably reasons why people pursued him, likely for his money or his technical skills. At first, he tried to fight and survive everything. But over time, it became more difficult to trust others. Even the people sent to protect him tried to end his life. After a while, for his own safety, he stopped meeting people, and paranoia affected him. He had to retreat to this safe place and build that trap room to stop people who were coming after him. There's no clean blood in that room, and everyone there has come looking for something horrible. Heisen sighs, and although he's still suspicious of the man, he releases him from the rope. The man has been kind to him so far, so there's no reason to be too hostile. Dr. Jin also trusts him because he's someone Kirill sent. Given that he trusts Kirill, then he can trust Heisei. Back then, when he was at the lowest point in his life and about to die, the girl approached him with an umbrella and tried to help. And from what he remembers of Kirill, this boy is surprisingly similar to her, even down to the spots covering his skin. He finds it almost funny that the master and student are so similar. However, Haizi doesn't see it that way and thinks the only thing similar between them is the fact that they are both poisoners. Dr. Jin tells him that they are both similar in the way they do what they want and reveals that Kirill also had the same dark purple spots when she was younger. That surprises Hyson, as Kirill is as beautiful as he knows her now. Dr. Jin sighs and realizes it will be faster for both of them if he simply explains the situation instead of talking idly. They both begin walking to another part of the laboratory, and the doctor asks our protagonist what he thinks about the poison in his body. He doesn't know much about it, so the doctor explains that a single drop of his poisonous blood is strong enough to kill an A-rank knight. It's so powerful that no chemical weapon ever produced can compare to it. Hyson knows that when a hunter becomes an A-rank, most attacks are usually useless against them. However, just one drop of his blood is enough to kill someone that powerful. Dr. Jin pulls him out of his thoughts and tells him that although he is powerful, that ability is useless if it cannot be controlled. So for now, he will have to train before he becomes a disaster himself. With that, Dr. Jin shows him a room full of training equipment and materials to use and get stronger. His scars are a symptom that shows he cannot control his poison, so for now, he has to gain greater control over his poison, which will allow them to disappear naturally. The doctor assures Hyson that he is the one who trained Kirill, so he will be unrecognizably different when his training is finished. With the explanation complete, Dr. Jin gets straight to the point and tells him to start working. As Hyson strives to improve, Dr. Jin provides motivation, forcing him not to slack off, and increasing the intensity of his workouts when he deems it necessary. They have only been working together for a short period of time, but Hyson is already lifting weights that could incapacitate a normal man. By the 7th day of his training with Dr. Jin, many changes had already occurred. First, the doctor had finally removed his gas mask, which probably meant he trusts our protagonist. The first time he saw the older man without his mask, Hyson almost couldn't recognize him. The second change is that his sister woke up and became hysterical at not seeing him nearby. She obviously scolded him quite a bit for practically abandoning her and going to some unknown place, but even with that, she still decided to trust him. The third change is a new device created to help him in his growth as a hunter. One day, Dr. Jim came to him and handed him a new type of device. He has 3 devices, including an improved version of the one Kirill gave him. Dr. Jin designed and developed this incredible tool in just 3 days. And finally, the biggest change would be our protagonist. There were many changes that occurred in his body after the training. Not only were his spots no longer as dark, but he had also become incredibly muscular in a short period of time. The change happened so rapidly that it surprised both him and Dr. Jin. He developed a good body and an attractive face overnight, and ended up looking so handsome that Dr. Jin almost feels jealous. As his training continues, Hyson decides to ask the doctor if he's bored of being in the underground bunker. After all, he's been alone down there for who knows how long, and it's a miracle he's lasted this long. Dr. Jin corrects him, saying he's actually not alone. He has a little companion who has been resting on Hyson's shoulder all this time. Our protagonist looks down at his shoulder to check and, for the first time, notices a small dragon sleeping on his shoulder. The little one's name is Pori, and it's a harmless and friendly poisonous monster. Even if someone is bitten by the little dragon, they only end up feeling a slight itch. It also has the ability to absorb poison from its owner and has been stuck to Hyson's shoulder for 2 days. Hyson has been going through various training sessions, and even with his newly intensified senses, he still didn't notice the creature resting on his shoulder. That's because Pori has the ability to become invisible. Invisibility is one of the rarest abilities, even among strong espers. That alone means Pori is anything but normal. However, Hyson doesn't have time to think about that, and the doctor orders him to go back to his training. Elsewhere, a secretary reports his findings to his supervisor at the Glory Guild headquarters. The president of the Glory Guild, Gu Gung, gives appropriate orders after hearing the report. But something in particular catches his attention about the whole matter. He keeps hearing about the Guy Von Don incident, and it's making him sick. He would prefer not to have to hear about such troublesome things again. The secretary nervously promises to make the reports disappear after some forceful persuasion from the president, and then prepares to leave. Goon calls him back and asks where someone named Maria is. The secretary becomes even more nervous and seems afraid to reveal the answer, and that tells the president everything he needs to know. She locked herself in the healing room again. His suspicions are correct, and Maria is sitting there, silently crying as she repeatedly cuts her forearms and mutters apologies to no one in particular. The healing room is one of the Glory Guild's many secrets, and it's Maria's exclusive room for endless self-harm. She goes down there when she needs to torture herself due to her overwhelming sense of guilt for not being able to protect everyone. Most of her injuries would have been fatal if she were any other person. However, Maria's healing ability is so powerful that she can regenerate any wound she sustains as soon as she is injured. As she sits on the floor crying, the president tries to comfort her, telling her there was nothing they could have done to save those who died. Maria doesn't listen and reminds him that more than 500 innocent people lost their lives. They have no right to say they've done their best when so many people were sacrificed. Guggen sighs and puts his head in his hand. They've had this conversation several times at this point, and he always reminds her that there's nothing they could have done differently. She asks him if things would have been different if she had gone with the rescue team. They could have split into teams of 2, and even arriving late at the scene, they could have saved at least one more person. The thought of her failure makes her burst into tears. And Guggen is forced to remind her that the monster that appeared in Jevenden was a disaster. Right now, they have no idea who killed it so easily, but the truth is, they would have struggled to face it on their own. The thought of that makes Guggen cry as a tear falls down his cheek. After all, he was the one making the decisions, so if anything, that disaster was his fault. Maria freezes in shock, seeing that the president seems to be breaking down in tears of his own and blames himself solely for the disaster. At least, that's what she thinks is happening. In truth, this is the same routine he has to go through every time Maria gets out of control. And he's already getting tired of it. His plan works, and Maria goes from blaming herself to immediately comforting him. As soon as he notices her change of mood, he offers to take her to the next hunter examination location. After all, they need to recruit more talent, and bringing in more people means they'll have the opportunity to save more innocent lives. Maria brightens up momentarily, and the president takes the opportunity to think about something else that has been bothering him. The person who defeated the monster in Gaebondan is incredibly strong, and he has to find out who it was. In Dr. Jin's laboratory, Hyson works on more strength training. The doctor takes the opportunity to ask him what he plans to do once his training is complete. The answer is obvious and expected, and Hyson reveals that he plans to become a hunter, and instead of becoming a knight, he actually plans to become a healer. Ironically, his goals align with the man who put his life in danger in the first place. Guggen also believes the world needs more talented healers. Hexen wants to save more lives, while Guggen is more focused on the fact that good healers are scarce, and his guild needs them in case their members get injured in fights. Because of that, the two are likely to clash at the next hunter examination location, with their goals set and their training complete. Eventually, the time comes for Hyson to say goodbye to Dr. Jin. The two men shake hands, and the doctor reveals that he even grew a little fond of his subordinate in such a short time. He then reveals that Pori will also go with him, and the two exchange a final farewell, as the doctor tells the little dragon to take care of Hyson. As soon as he returns home, he is immediately met by his very angry sister. She puts him in a headlock out of spite and pulls his ear as he desperately tries to explain himself. Hyson finally gets a chance to explain himself, and although his sister is still not happy, she's not as angry as before. However, she doubts the intentions of the person who supposedly saved him. Her age is uncertain, and he has no idea who she is or what she's associated with. Kirill might not even be her real name. Normal hunters are expected to help civilians, but Kirill went above and beyond, and it seems she has some hidden motives. Despite his sister's reservations, Hyson defends his mentor and is sure that she is not a bad person. Songhua gives him one last piece of advice, telling him that the time might come when he has to return the help she has given him. And when that time comes, he might not even be able to handle it. But putting that aside, the most important discussion is the fact that he wants to become a hunter. Hyson nervously looks away, hoping she's against it, but surprisingly, she tells him to go ahead. There's no reason to stop him, and if it's something he wants to do, then she will support him. He nods his head in gratitude. This is how Songhua has always been, after all. He doesn't want something like what happened in Gaebondan to happen again. He wants to become a hunter to have the opportunity to save people, just as he was saved. Despite the dangers, Songhua enthusiastically supports his dream and assures him that he will be a greater hunter than all the others. Hyson finds it amusing that the two people he trusts the most have told him exactly the same thing. Now, with her blessing to take the exam, she casually tells him that the registration fee is 50 million won. Suddenly, his sister is no longer so supportive of him taking the exam. It might be better for him to work in a small factory. Hyzen assures her that he already has a way to get the money, and despite what she thinks, he doesn't plan to sell an organ. His plan instead is to enter a place that hunters frequent regularly. The randomly appearing dungeons in the world are not only full of monsters, but also contain treasures that can make people's dreams come true. This particular dungeon is a poison dungeon, and it's one of the most infamous types of dungeons. It's so toxic that restrictions have been placed around it in hopes of controlling the spread of the poison. However, the problem is that the more the restriction zone extends, the more problems tend to arise. But now that he's right in front of the door, there's no turning back. Hyzen takes a deep breath and throws himself through the swirling purple door to the other side. He finds himself in a completely new world. It's so fascinating that it almost seems like he's in a video game, and as expected, he can also feel the dense poison in the air. Other hunters wouldn't even be able to breathe in the area, but that doesn't worry him. For now, his main focus is to find a certain plant that he can sell to get the necessary money for the exam. As he walks through the toxic environment, he eventually finds his first obstacle, a deadly poisonous Komodo dragon. It has a physical level of E and a difficulty level of 2 stars. It also has another level of D. That other level refers to all other types of attack abilities such as telekinesis and elemental abilities. In other words, this monster has a 2-star difficulty due to its deadly poison, and since he doesn't have to worry about the poison, Hyzen should be able to fight it easily. That should be the case, but instead of confidence, he is paralyzed with fear. His hands tremble rapidly, and nothing he does can calm him down. Every instinct in his body tells him to run away, and the trauma of the Guy Von Don incident surges in his mind. Then, in the moments when he seems to barely be able to think, Pori appears in front of him, and the little dragon looks at its master with concern. That's enough to snap him out of his frozen state, and he manages to regain control of his mind. Now that he has composed himself, he searches his pockets for the device the doctor gave him. As he rummages through his pockets, the monsters eventually notice him and begin to emerge from the bushes. He counts up to 3, rushing towards him, and they keep coming. Fortunately, he finds it just in time, and that's enough to give him the confidence that he can kill them no matter how many there are. He remembers when he first got the device. The doctor explained to him that it's a weapon that will take the form he requires at that moment. All he has to do is hold it in his hand and shout for it to move. With that memory in mind, he holds it close and tells it to move. The box's functionalities are infinite, and it reacts to his ether to increase its power. The device's name is EXA, and as it changes shape and becomes a more formidable weapon, Hyzen can't help but marvel at the device created by the coolest scientist in the world, Dr. Jin. Hexa transforms into a sharp dagger, and as he holds the weapon, Jason is even more certain that he won't fall without a fight. As the monsters charge at him through the bushes, Hyzen activates the first ability his mentor taught him. He raises his hand and calls Poison Rain just as one of the deadly Komodos prepares to bite him. The toxic liquid falls from the sky, and just one drop is enough to make the Komodo closest to him explode. The rest of them don't even have time to process what happened before they too are destroyed by the toxic rain. As Hyzen walks through the field of scattered monster body parts, he's more worried about how his sister will react to the blood on his shirt than about the monsters in the forest. But it's all worth it as he absorbs the black ether from the dead monsters. This place is practically a buffet for him because of the amount of ether in the area. As he runs toward the next dead monster, he realizes that a dungeon like this was practically made for him. After absorbing from the last corpse, that brings the total black ether he has absorbed to 50 BA. If he keeps going, he could gather up to 300 BA before returning home. Hyzen has become so powerful in such a short time that he can barely believe it. The ether generally varies greatly, depending on the user's power, but this is too powerful. The wounds he managed to inflict on the Komodos were only small cuts, but all of them died before they could even resist. That makes Exa a weapon capable of shooting his enemies. With his current growth, he could have reached the strongest class and surpassed Kirill. In his excitement, he hastily opens his status window to see how much he has grown. He doesn't expect an S rank, but a B or an A would be satisfactory. Instead, his new and improved lens device called V1 tells him that he is currently E-class in physical strength with an S rating in healing abilities. That's a bit unsatisfactory, but it doesn't matter that he's only E-class. He plans to become a healer anyway. At least, that's what he tells himself to try and feel better. In reality, he's so disappointed that he starts to wonder if he should just go home. He couldn't even find the special flower he came here for in the first place. As he makes his next plans, a surge of murderous intent makes him stop dead in his tracks. He turns to where the feeling is coming from, ready to face something fierce. He can tell, just from the aura of what's approaching, that this monster is on a completely different level than the monsters he fought before. From the forest, a contaminated and deadly hyena approaches him. He doesn't even need the B1 analysis to know that this is beyond his reach. In terms of physical capability, it has a physical level of C and another level of B. The hyena must be the dungeon boss. And although Hasten's poison is stronger, the physical level is 2 ranks above his. The gap in strength between them is too great to overcome. But even if it's much more powerful, there's still a chance he can defeat it. The monster wastes no time and begins its attack, running towards Jasel's blind spot. Then it appears behind him faster than he can think to defend himself. In a matter of seconds, the hyena leaves a deadly cut on his arm, forcing him to fall to the ground immediately. Heejin begins to wonder if this is where he will die. The hyena is much more powerful than him, and he couldn't follow its movements at all. But he can't just give up here. There's no way he's dying after having cheated death so many times before. He forces himself back into the field and notices that the hyena is no longer attacking. It's still patiently waiting for the poison to spread through his body with a small smile on its face. That makes Haisen even more enraged, but it also gives him a chance to win. The hyena's arrogance will end up being what kills it. Our protagonist provokes the beast to attack again, and it rushes into the fight. First, Haisen has to wear down its stamina. Then he just has to hope that his high-level healing ability is stronger than any damage the hyena manages to inflict. Every poisoner uses their abundant healing power to control the poison in their body, but when the poison is perfectly controlled, then there's no need for healing. That doesn't mean the healing simply disappears. It can be used to heal other wounds, which makes poisoners some of the best healers around. Dr. Jin taught him that fact, and now he has to use it to defend himself. The hyena bites his arm hard, and he throws his dagger, pushing it away. Now that he has a plan, he can use the third device Dr. Jin gave him as a trump card in this situation. The circulator allows him to better control the flow of poison in his body, which means he'll be able to heal faster and more effectively. Thanks to this, his arm heals immediately, and he's ready to begin the second round. The two clash in the poison-filled field, and somehow, he can keep up with the monster's fast movements. However, that's not enough to prevent him from getting injured repeatedly. As he heals his wounds again, he can see that the hyena isn't even too worried. It seems there's no end to this fight after all, and he may have underestimated a C-level physical ability too much. They've been fighting for an hour, and the hyena shows no signs of tiring. The beast leaps at him again, and he has to use poison steps to avoid being cut in two. Every attack goes right through him, and all this time Hasten hasn't been able to land a proper blow. Although things seem desperate, he's somehow getting used to the beast's movements. It's slow and unfair, but the fight isn't as impossible as when they started. The hyena is too arrogant, but the reason is that it knows how important spirit is in a fight. If Hasten shows weakness, he'll be devoured alive immediately, so he has to keep giving his best, even when the hyena strikes his body and sends him flying through a forest of trees. He can't stop getting up and showing his will to fight. He's not giving up, and the hyena acts too nonchalantly as it waits for him to get up again, and he can tell it's not even giving its all in this fight. He remembers what Kirill once told him, not to despair, no matter how strong the enemy's in his way. If someone as strong as Kirill were to be scared by an enemy, then that enemy must be indescribably strong. He made a promise to Kirill to become that strong, so he can't afford to fall here. The hyena attacks him again with an avalanche of attacks and moves so fast that he can barely react. He just has to endure and keep healing until the enemy gets tired. It's the only way he can survive this. At this point, the only thing he can do is wait for a miracle, like the last time he summoned the Red Viper. Dr. Jin once told him that the Viper was too strong, and it's a miracle he survived summoning it. Now he has to wait for that same miracle to happen again, and eventually it does, as he sees B1 notify him that his black ether is changing because he's fighting an opponent that is several times stronger than him. Thanks to the endless struggle and his clinging to life, his physical level increases from E rank to D rank. This is the miracle he's been looking for all this time. And the slight increase in power is all he needed to regain control of the fight. He activates poison steps once more and immediately notices a difference in his physical capabilities. He's faster, stronger, and his reflexes are sharper than ever. Even the hyena recoils in surprise from the sudden surge of power. But even if he's become stronger and the hyena is tired, it's still a C level, which means it's still out of his league. But all he has to do is land a single attack. He has one last chance to make things work, and if he does anything more than that, he won't be able to control his own poison. Hyson gives up on defense completely and puts all his energy into a single sharp attack. It's a gamble, but all he has to do is land one attack. He crouches down and takes a menacing stance, hoping to control his new speed and strength. Then he explodes towards his target, using an improved version of poison steps to close the distance between them as quickly as possible. It seems his endless struggle was worth it after all, because the hyena was so tired it couldn't even react to Hyson's attack. The blade pierces its target perfectly, and the hyena's head flies off. Now that the battle is finally over, it's time for him to worry about the real boss who will probably take his life, and that's his older sister when she sees what happened to his clothes. With the boss eliminated, all he can do is hope the next dungeon is at least a little easier. But his worries aren't over yet, as something else is watching him from the shadows. He walked home shirtless, with people pointing at him in the street. It was incredibly humiliating. He even ran into the woman he saved at the Gaibongdong checkpoint. She tries to thank him for his previous help, but he's so embarrassed that he pretends not to know her. And just as he expected, his sister gave him a thorough beating when he got home. The one-sided beating was so intense that his spine broke from the attack. It was such an embarrassing experience that the next day, he immediately bursts into tears, just remembering it. But right now, he doesn't have time to think about the previous day's shame. He's in another dungeon, and currently fleeing from a giant spider trying to kill him. The giant monster throws him against a wall, and he's more worried about the dirt on his clothes than anything else. But, fortunately for him, the monster pushed him right where he needed to be. He has finally found the mysterious bronze sunflower he's been looking for. The flower changes color according to the dungeon's difficulty. Bronze is an easy dungeon, silver is normal, and gold is the most difficult. He managed to find the lowest quality one, which is the bronze sunflower, and although it's not as valuable as the others, this sunflower can easily fetch at least 10 million. Higher qualities can go up to 50 million. The reason is because the flower has special characteristics that make it incredibly useful. It has the healing power of an S-rank healer, and even just the bronze sunflower has impressive healing powers. The gold sunflower is said to be able to create miracles. However, those sunflowers only grow in poison dungeons near boss rooms, which makes it incredibly difficult for normal people to go look for them. Plus, they have the annoying characteristic of wilting when the boss monster dies. That's why he's fleeing from this giant spider instead of confronting it, even though it's much weaker than the hyena he fought before. That's why he first has to control the boss before going out to look for the flower. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the power to do so. His abilities are either to cause massive damage or to heal. B1 informs him that there's another option for him. Exa has a non-lethal mode called White Dream that has been created to control enemies. It can put them to sleep or completely paralyze them. Dr. Jin created it for people like him, who are more focused on attack power but need a special way to subdue enemies. That's a brilliant mode for him to use, but the most urgent thing is why B1 didn't tell him this a long time ago. The reason is that he didn't ask, and it seems this lens has an annoying sense of humor. Hyson is angry with them, but decides to ignore the obvious slight in favor of focusing on defeating this enormous spider. He calls the spider, and that makes it rush towards him, but Kaisen is ready and takes the opportunity to cut the spider just as it passes him. White Dream works exactly as described and immediately puts the spider to sleep. With the boss monster unconscious, Hyson can take the flower in peace without further interruptions. Well, except for Pori, who appears and seems devastated when he's told he can't eat it. As he holds his prize in his hands, he remembers the people who advised him to come look for the flower in the first place. The two taught him that he had to get both flowers and try to earn as much money as possible. As he leaves the dungeon and heads to where he'll sell the sunflower, he begins to remember his time with Dr. Ikiriel. He can't sell it normally, since the association has restrictions on things like sunflowers. So he heads to the Underground Economy Center, which is basically the black market for hunters. As soon as he arrives in the area, he notices many suspicious people looking at him distrustfully. He also orders Pori to bite anyone who tries anything funny with them. Even the black market vendors give him dirty looks as he passes, and some directly try to force him to buy their products. The whole place is a huge mess, and it seems people want to attack him because they think he looks weak. The black market is definitely a place for large groups of suspicious people to gather, and the atmosphere feels like at any moment everyone is going to pounce on him. Now everyone's attention has shifted to something much more interesting. A tall and enormous E-level knight is about to challenge a thin-looking D-level knight. If they were normal people, the one with the bigger body would definitely win. But since they are hunters, things are very different for them. The thin guy ignores the taller guy's provocations and grabs his opponent by the neck and seems ready to deliver a final blow. Although in real fights victory can depend on hidden abilities and incredible advantages, the person with the higher level will always have the advantage. The fight and the cheering crowd have hastened that the black market is a lawless area, and if someone enters without a weapon, it's normal for people to suspect that they are strange or defenseless. Fortunately, even though he's only a D level, no one has approached him yet, so he can move quite normally. As he walks, he notices a scanning device for sale at one of the tables. It's much worse than his B1 lens, and can't even correctly detect an opponent's level. Despite that, the price is enormous. Another passerby sees it as incredibly cheap and buys it immediately. That shows how poorly Hazen is created by the doctor's incredible technology. That's not his concern right now, and his main objective is to find a shop that deals with the sunflower he has in his bag. He asks Pori to look around with his stealth ability, but when he gets no response, he realizes that Pori is nowhere to be found. Then he hears someone scream and finds Pori biting a red-haired girl. He runs to stop him as the little dragon continues to annoy the girl, but that turns out to be a mistake, as the girl swats his hand away and runs off into the crowd. As she moves away, she activates a stealth ability, disappearing right before his eyes, and just as he had expected, she had taken his bag too. The girl takes a moment to rest in an empty alley, thinking she must have escaped. She noticed that he had put the bronze sunflower in only a black plastic bag and had to take the opportunity to try and steal it. Unbeknownst to her, she messed with the wrong person, and Hae-sing is already right in front of her before she can even react. And unfortunately for her, Hae-sing heard everything she said and is not at all pleased. His intimidating aura is enough to make her recoil in fear, and he orders her to return his bag. She rightly realizes that she cannot win in a fight against him and agrees to return it. But in return, she suggests that the two of them make a deal. It's painfully obvious that he has no idea where to sell the sunflower he has, and it turns out she has the knowledge he needs. She was born and raised in the black market, so she has all the information about the confusing streets and their vendors. She also knows the places most people wouldn't dare to enter, like those that deal with the sunflower. Since it's a restricted and very rare item to find, not many people know it exists, but she can recommend a place that handles it decently. In exchange, they will split the profits, with her taking 40% and him 60%. Hazen is angry because the girl seems to underestimate him. She doesn't seem like a bad person, and he wouldn't want to fight her, but he has to teach her a lesson for messing with him. He allows his poisonous ether to surround him, creating a menacing aura that makes her instinctively recoil. Then he tells her he planned to scare her, but it seems he'll have to kill her instead. She tries to resist the bluff and tells him he wouldn't be able to find her if she tried to hide. But then, he reminds her that she was bitten by his family. In reality, the bite does nothing more than cause a little itch, but she doesn't know that. He tells her that Pori's poison can kill an S-rank knight, and the little dragon acts tough to back up his argument. In the black market, losers are the fools, and to be the winner you have to appear strong. With his intimidating aura and the threat of imminent death by poison, he has managed to fill her mind with enough fear to prevent her from resisting. With no other option, the girl breaks down in tears and begs him to spare her life. It seems his intimidation worked a little too well. However, her stealth is problematic to handle, and if he hadn't done this, she could have escaped again and led him on an endless chase. Now that the worst is over, he introduces himself to her, and she tremblingly introduces herself as Besu, the daughter of the black market. Now that they are friends, Hae-sing tells her to be his guide and take him to the place where he can sell his sunflower. Besu takes him to a crazy-looking man who introduces himself as Yakya, the strongest person in the entire black market, and whom everyone refers to as father. He can barely hide his disgust as he tries to make a deal with Yacha. It's a bit strange that the final boss appeared just because he wanted to make a simple deal. The reason is because Bezu, his daughter, brought him here, so he must have felt there was a reason for them to meet. Although he says she is his daughter, he doesn't seem very concerned about the fact that she brought a stranger with her. Father smiles and reminds Hyson that the rules of the place are quite simple. The one who loses is the fool, so if she gets lost, he doesn't care at all. The direct brutality of the black market is enough to make Hyson lose his composure. It also doesn't help that the man has been eating raw monster meat the whole time they've been talking. That only shows that Yasha is as much a monster as the beasts he fights in dungeons. However, that's not his problem, and he redirects the conversation back to his original purpose for coming to the black market. He wants to sell the bronze sunflower, and is looking to make a good deal with him. Yacha seems very interested, as there has been a lack of supply. Besides that, he also has one of the best quality ones. Father is interested in making a deal and seems to be the decisive type, so they should be able to reach some kind of compromise. At least that's what Hyson thinks, until Father pulls out a poisoned hyena, the same beast that almost killed him in his first dungeon. It seems that Yasha is not completely convinced of Hyson's sincerity. After all, he managed to find an item that is incredibly difficult to get, even for the Hunter Association. So if he managed to gather it himself, that means he must have defeated a boss monster inside a poisoned dungeon. If that's the case, then he should be able to kill the poisonous hyena too. His logic is sound, and Hoisei wastes no time, as he immediately takes down the hyena before Yasha can even blink. With the deal already sealed, he tells Yaka to make him an offer. That piques Yaka's interest, and the deal continues. Basu doesn't appreciate the way Hyson talks to her father and tries to tell him to show some respect. But Yaka orders her to know her place, filling the room with a kind of dangerous aura. Jason can barely move under the intense pressure, but then he realizes it's not just pressure keeping him down, it's also bloodlust. Just because his daughter interrupted the conversation, this crazy guy exuded such strong bloodlust that it even made a cut on Hason's cheek. That makes him even more confused as to how strong this guy is supposed to be. Besu isn't as lucky as him, and she ended up being completely thrown back due to the strong pressure. Yacha wastes no time and immediately tries to continue their deal. He starts the bidding at 60 million, and that completely changes Hason's perspective of him. Our protagonist accepts the deal immediately and even scolds Besu in his mind for trying to steal in the streets when she has such an incredible father. With the deal done and setting aside Hyson's strange advances towards Yaka, it's time for him to leave the black market. He heals Abisu, who still believes Pori's bite was deadly, and she is amazed at how quickly all her wounds healed. Then Hyson reveals that there was never any danger from Pori's venom, and that she wasn't actually going to die. That means Bezu's crying was in vain, and she tries to get revenge on Hyson by hitting him, but he easily dodges all her attacks. The rules of the black market say that the loser is the fool, and she was simply too naive. Hyson takes advantage of her clumsy attack to escape, telling her not to steal next time if she doesn't want to be fooled. After Hyson leaves, Yaksha asks her if all her wounds were really healed. She confirms that they were, but the scar he left is still fresh on her face. Then his attention turns to the black ether on the ground. Yacha picks it up, and to him, it feels sticky and disgusting. When he hit Hyson with his bloodlust earlier, their ethers revealed each other, and he noticed that the boy had a surprisingly high level of ether. The sensation reminds him of a time when he was younger and faced someone who shattered his will so much that he begged her to finish him. The woman refused and kept telling him to get up and fight her, all while maintaining an arrogant smile on her face. Hyson's ether reminds him of that woman and brings unpleasant memories to the black market boss. Back at home, Songhwa prepares Hyson for his trip to the Hunter Association. Thanks to the money from his sale of the bronze sunflower, he was able to pay the registration fee for the hunter exam. Now his sister tries to clean him up and make him look better, so he'll look good to the judges. That would be fine if it weren't for the fact that he's not actually going to take the real exam yet. He's just going to register, and although he looks great, there's no need to go that far just to register. He heads to the Hunter Organization building, and on his way, two guys notice him as he passes. One of them comments that he's quite weak and wonders why someone like that would be taking a hunter's exam. It's really immature to judge a hunter by their appearance, but the guy can't help but feel disgust at the sight of Hyson. They don't know that Hyson heard all that and vows to remember their faces no matter what. When he becomes a hunter, he'll make sure to never heal them, no matter what. But their comments remind him of the spots on his foot. He thought they had improved, but it seems they still look quite bad. When he submits his registration form, the woman at the counter quickly finishes his paperwork and tells him to leave as soon as possible. It seems even she is disgusted by his appearance. He takes the document and turns to leave, but the fact that she continues to maintain her disgusted expression, even as he walks away, bothers him. She calls the next person, and the guy is more focused on Hyson than on approaching the counter. He also dislikes the fact that Hyson is registering and feels that someone who looks as weak as him only lowers the standard. The women at the counter recognize him as a naked UGI-1. He smiles and tells them not to let anyone know they found him here. Apparently, he's someone famous and doesn't want anyone to know he's applying to become a hunter yet. The girls are excited to see him and promise they won't reveal to anyone the fact that he was there. Outside the area, with Hyson's application completed, it's time for him to go home. As he leaves the building, he notices someone outside protesting on their own. She holds a sign that talks about Glory Guild and how they abandoned Guy Bondon. Although it was a massive disaster, it seems that protests have become much less frequent recently. Someone rushes to tell the woman that she has to leave before the police are called. Hyson watches them and wonders if he could have done something to save the people of Guy Bondon, if he had awakened sooner. The woman becomes more erratic when told to leave the area. She grabs the man's shirt and cries loudly for her dead son, while the man keeps trying to make her leave. If Hyson had awakened sooner, then that woman wouldn't have to make a protest of this magnitude. This is the third day she has come to protest alone, and at this rate, she will collapse if she continues like this. Hyson can't help but clench his fists in rage as the woman begs to meet the president of the association just once, and her requests are denied. The commotion is interrupted when someone more violent enters to join the conversation. He is the one who sent the man earlier to end the woman's protest, but it seems he has to come out to handle it personally. The man's name is Braulio, and he is an E-level knight affiliated with the association. The man pushes his subordinate aside and approaches the woman with a dangerous look on his face. Something about his behavior makes Hyson feel very uncomfortable. He threatens the woman, telling her he has already warned her to stop doing what she's doing, but she keeps ignoring them. Then he raises his fist as the woman trembles in fear and tells his subordinate that if he wants someone to listen to him, then he has to make his actions brief and forceful. With that, he throws his hand towards the woman with all his strength, and his fist collides with something, causing dust to rise into the air. He continues his lesson, telling the woman that she should have listened to him from the beginning, and that her constant ignoring his words is what led him to use drastic measures like this. But it seems he's gonna have to give his lesson again because someone stopped his fist from hitting the poor woman. Hyson couldn't sit back and watch an innocent woman being attacked by an arrogant guy like this. His anger is clear on his face as he squeezes the man's hand tighter. Braulio pulls his hand away, completely unfazed by the guy who appeared out of nowhere, and tells him to get out of the way so he can do his job. Hyson doesn't listen to any of his words and tells him to stay still if he doesn't want his head broken. He cannot stand the fact that a hunter affiliated with the association uses his power against a civilian. He argues that he's only doing official work and asks who our protagonist thinks he is to interrupt. Hyson doesn't want to hear any of that and reveals that he is an incoming hunter as he deploys his ether. That further enrages Braulio, and he orders Hyson to withdraw his ether before things get serious, while also revealing his own ether, which has a fiery aura. The two seem to be about to fight, and the woman tries to calm the situation before it gets worse. Hyson assures her that she doesn't have to worry because he will always win, and that further angers Braulio. He prepares to step in and fight, but that breaks Hyson's order not to move. Our protagonist is more than happy to show him the consequences of his actions when he grabs him by the face before he can react and slams him to the ground with just a single attack. The man is already trembling and can barely muster the energy to get up, but even with that, he swears he's going to kill Hyson, as the rage of being humiliated in this way builds up in him. In response, Hyson kneels down next to him and lists all of the man's abilities in his face. Braulio's bravery disappears as he hears all his abilities listed like names on a blacklist. Then Hyson moves closer to the man's face and takes the badge from his neck, warning him that his abilities are not for threatening people but for protecting them. Civilians are the ones who need him, not the Glory Guild. As he gives the man a verbal reprimand, a group of people comes out of the association building to confront him, and one of them is the president himself, Gugun. This man is an S-level hunter, and such hunters are known to have reached the maximum level of strength a human can achieve. They are also the pinnacle of a hunter's powers and the heroes of the world. When death, failure, or despair are present on the battlefield while hunters fight, these types overcome everything and can change the outcome of any battle into something totally different. That's because they are not normal hunters and don't fall like the others. They don't despair and lose. They use miracles to achieve things other hunters can only dream of. And now, two of these hunters are in front of Hyzen, observing him for his next move. The mountain is Gugum, and the miracle, Maria, who are two famous people known for being powerful hunters. They came out to find out what the commotion was about, and they see a participant committing violence against an association hunter. To them, it seems Hyzen is going too far. However, that doesn't stop the young man's anger, and Gugun's words only seem to infuriate him more. He tells the older man to stop talking, and that immediately ignites the association president. Hyzen says that if he came out to stop them, then he should do it properly, instead of acting on a whim and trying to intimidate him. Obviously, a participant is not allowed to attack an association hunter, but likewise, an association hunter is not allowed to attack a normal person. That surprises Maria Jade while Gugun remains silent and reflects on the implications. It seems his words have affected them, and he continues, saying that he will apologize if their association allows knights to beat up civilians. Gugun takes a moment to think about the situation and looks at a horrified Maria before sighing and deciding to apologize to Hyzen. Despite the situation, he admits that Hyzen did the right thing and promises to make sure to punish the hunter for attacking a citizen, and then he will have the victim duly compensated for the situation. Winwan, the association's subleader who also came out with them, promises to follow up properly. The hunter who first came out to warn the woman leads her inside while she bows her head and cries in her hands. Wingwang follows him to speak with the woman privately, and Hyzen sighs with relief, happy that everything didn't turn into a real disaster. But he's not finished and tells the president the real reason that woman was protesting. As soon as Gugun hears the name Gaebongdong, he freezes for a moment. Maria looks like she's about to faint. He tells them that her son died during the dual gate incident that occurred in the area, and it was a truly unfortunate incident, as it could have been prevented. Then he changes the subject and asks the president if he thinks the buildings in the area are clean. After all, it doesn't even have dirt or stains, while Gaebongdong is drenched in blood. By the way he acts and the anger he shows, the president realizes that Hyzen is also from Gavendor. Our protagonist congratulates the man for successfully protecting the richer Gupadon and even points out the fact that there were no casualties. But that doesn't change the fact that he didn't come to Gavendon when needed. Maria turns her head in shame as he continues to reproach them, and his words hit hard, as she knows things could have been different. On one occasion, he had Dr. Jian review the security camera recordings of the disaster, and the man assured him that if the Glory Guild had appeared, the number of victims could have been reduced by half. Knowing this, Hyzen asked the man why he decided to abandon the lives of those who could have been saved. Gugun remains silent while Hyzen continues to provoke, and when he finally speaks, he doesn't answer the question, and instead mocks Hyzen for being too young and emotional. Then he releases his ether, staring at Hazy while reminding him exactly who he's talking to. The empty threats make our protagonist laugh, and he doesn't back down from insulting the man who let an entire city district die. He knows exactly who Gugung is, and he's the #1 knight in Korea who was crushed by Kang Hyun. That takes things too far, and the president seems ready to fight Hyzen right there. For someone to speak to him so insolently means he must be confident in his abilities. Hyzen still doesn't back down and approaches the man, confirming that he is indeed sure of himself. He tells Gugun to try him, as he seems so interested, and he is determined to never bow his head to this man. Elsewhere, Yugi-wan takes a drink as he leans against his car. He hears some people who seem to be talking about someone and immediately assumes they must be talking about him. They are looking in his direction with awe, and he decides to give them a quick autograph so they'll leave. He calls them over and asks for a pen and paper. They are confused, and he asks them if they plan to get an autograph from him, but that only confuses them even more. It seems they have no idea who he is, and that boosts his ego even more, as he believes he managed to charm people who don't even know who he is. However, in reality, he was looking at something else. They point behind him, and he finally notices the enormous aura flowing behind him that belongs to the famous S-Rank knight, Gugun. It's at that moment that the woman realizes that the person they were talking to is Yuji-won. Back with our protagonist Gugun has reached the limit of his patience and gives Hasen one last chance to apologize for his words and actions. Hasen gives him an obscene gesture and tells him he won't apologize for anything in the near future. That is the last chance he can be given, and the president adjusts his tie with a menacing grip. Then he reaches out to grab Hasen by the face, while the younger man still refuses to back down. This is when Maria has to intervene, throwing a shield to stop the president before he goes further. Then she uses her abilities to disperse the president's aura, leaving them standing again next to the association building. Maria quickly invents a cover story, telling the president that he must have been showing his strength to encourage a participant to become strong. It's then that Gugun finally notices the crowd gathered around them. Fortunately for him, everyone believes Maria's words, and it's clear that a misunderstanding could have formed if she hadn't stopped them when she did. Gugun moves his hand and instead pats Hasen on the shoulder, smiling at him and pretending he wasn't about to crush his skull 10 seconds ago. The sudden impudence of the man in front of him makes Hasen feel like he's going to vomit. The president leans in and whispers that they will see each other often, especially once he becomes a hunter. Maria tells him once again to stop his senseless fighting with the participant. If he continues to cause trouble, then she will have no choice but to intervene. Once he stops, she takes the opportunity to apologize to Hasen and even bows her head humbly. She promises to give a proper apology and compensation to those affected, but Hasen doesn't believe it. After all, Gabe and Bondin were handled by the Glory Guild, and they had a duty to protect it, but they also broke that promise. There's no reason for him to trust their words and appreciate their promise when they've already broken one before. There's no point in giving meaningless apologies and compensation when everyone is already dead. The president clenches his fist in anger, but Maria stops him again before he does anything rash. After all, nothing Hasen said is wrong. They were guilty of everything that happened, and Maria completely accepts it. Hasen still can't get over the fact that his sister almost died because of these people. There's no way they can resolve this anger with just money, and it's not like those who have died are coming back. With that, he turns to leave. But as he walks away, Maria calls out to him and asks what class he enrolled in. He thinks for a moment, then says he wants to become a healer so he can save the people who have been abandoned. He may not be able to save everyone, but he will never abandon anyone like the Glory Guild did. After Hasen leaves, Gugun reflects on the fact that the boy wants to become a healer. He has a rough ether for a healer, but it will be good if it turns out to be of high value. As he walks home, Hasen clenches his teeth in anger. As far as he's concerned, he lost that confrontation. He didn't think he'd win a fight with the #1 huntress in Korea, of course, and he was already sure that she would have stopped the fight if Gugun had overstepped with his threats. However, the moment they faced each other, Hasen felt small, as if he was in front of a huge mountain. That kind of thing is daunting, and shows that he is still far from becoming strong. When he finally gets home, he notices that the door is open, and there seem to be voices coming from inside. He enters and announces that he's home, just as someone seems to be trying to sell strange items to his sister. Songhwa turns to welcome Hasen home, and asks him when he became friends with the girl who came to visit, as she seems very kind-hearted. Hasen is confused about who this friend could be, but his questions are quickly answered when he sees who was with his sister while he was gone. It's Baesu, and she winks at him as he stares at her in horror. Without a second thought, he immediately tells her to leave his house. When she doesn't leave immediately, Hasen takes the liberty of throwing her out himself. She is in shock as she lies on the ground, wondering what exactly happened, and Hasen turns to close the door before she can stop him or try to plead with him. She reminds him that they became friends in the black market, and there's no reason for him to be so cruel to his only friend. After all, she only came to visit him, and they shouldn't be so hostile to each other. Her fake tears don't fool him, and he immediately deduces that Yaha must have sent her. He tells her to tell her father that if he dares to approach him again in this manner, then he will no longer deal with the man. Hasen knows he is an important seller for them, but if they want to maintain a relationship, they need to observe some boundaries. While scolding the girl for trying to sneak into his house, Songhwa comes out and delivers a clean hit to his chin. He flies into the sky and lands face first on the pavement behind Baesu. She is not at all happy with how harshly he is treating her friend and reprimands him for being so rude while he suffers a mild concussion on the ground. Then, she forces him to apologize immediately, and the older woman's sudden act of kindness makes Baesu emotional, and she runs to her for a hug. The next day, the two drive through the city, and Baesu asks him if he's still upset about the events that occurred yesterday. She already apologized for approaching his sister, but he still hasn't forgiven her. She promises that nothing will happen to her, but Haisen already knows that. He knows he doesn't have to worry about Baesu, but the person he can't trust is Yaka. The man has too many secrets up his sleeve, and could even have placed a dangerous artifact on Baesu without her knowing. Even Baesu admits that she can't say for sure that nothing will happen to his sister, if that were the case, but at least she knows her father wants to become good partners with him. That's why he sent her personally to come and support him. Haisen doesn't believe it and immediately realizes that she's here to keep an eye on him. After all, sunflowers are dwindling in the market, and demands remain the same, while the association keeps a tight grip on it, so when someone with sunflowers appears, it's natural to want to monitor that person. However, what he finds strange about Haisen is how obvious they are about it. Baesu doesn't even deny the claims and admits that she was ordered to watch him, but she had never personally been ordered to watch anyone before. She has no blood relation to Yacha, and he's only called father because that's the nickname the black market gave him. Baesu sees herself as a street wanderer, but for some reason, Yaka treats her specially. The black market father is no ordinary person, and the scar he has on his face is proof of that. She has no idea why he did it, but the day she was sold to the black market, he looked at her for a while and then cut her face. At that moment, she was desperate because she had lost her family and her will to live, and now she had to live the rest of her life with that kind of person. But despite how he acted, he never did anything wrong to her after that initial attack. Haisen tells her to go get checked, as she might have been hit so hard that she lost her memory, but she assures him that's not the case. For example, the car they are driving was not obtained by legal means. The car's owner was someone who owed Yaka for a dangerous drug called poisoned poppy. It looks like a normal plant, but once someone drinks its extract, they lose control of their emotions and see illusions. That means it's practically a hard drug. It can be super addictive and is also very easy to get, so people get addicted easily. But the scary part is that it has no negative side effects. Aside from the illusions, the person feels no problems, which makes it even more addictive. The poison poppy ruins people's lives because, although it's easy to buy, the high demand means it's incredibly expensive. Even when people run out of money, they still can't stop using it. That's what happened to the owner of the car he's driving. The man could no longer afford the poisoned poppy and couldn't pay Yaka on time. After only delaying one day, Yasha tore off his limbs and fed them to the dogs. It's the same fate for everyone who harmed him. Anyone who bothered him, tried to take his money, or even people who didn't follow his orders, all died in horrible ways at his hands. But for some reason, no matter how much Biso revealed herself, he never did anything against her. She constantly disobeyed him and even tried to steal his money, and the look he gave her made her feel like she was really about to die. But nothing ever happened. That's why she considers herself special, and also, that's why she's sure nothing will happen to Haisen. When he spoke rudely to Yaka earlier during their deal, anyone else would have had their head cut off, but instead, he just laughed, which shows how much the crazy man likes him. As they talked, they finally reached their destination. It's a poison dungeon that is expected to have a silver sunflower inside. Since there's a silver sunflower, the people inside are expected to be very strong. Baesu wishes him luck as he's about to enter, but he tells her she doesn't have to worry. After all, he is the king of places like these. Inside the poison dungeon, Baesu rummages through some items in her bag. She finally finds what she was looking for under the pile of rare potions and weapons. It's a drug that can attract monsters wherever it's used. All they have to do is dig a trap and pour the potion into it. Once the monsters gather, they'll be able to hunt them easily. At least that was the plan, but Haisen has his own ideas. He opens the flask of liquid and pours it all over his head, covering himself with the monster-attracting liquid. Baesu shouts at him, telling him that if he wants to die, he can do it alone, but he shouldn't drag her into it. But Haisen is confident in his abilities. After all, he just has to kill every monster that appears. Then she gives him a pill that is supposed to detoxify the poison in the air, but it only lasts 3 hours at a time. Baesu takes one for herself and tells him that she will leave the dungeon once the time is up, so he has to do the same. She doesn't know that Heisi doesn't need that kind of thing, but he appreciates that she prepared so many things just to support him. Besu immediately clears up any doubts he may have had about her feelings for him, as she still hasn't forgotten the things he did to her in the black market. Haisin sighs and tells her that she shouldn't prepare a pill for him next time, as dungeons are like his home. As a poisoner, the dark toxic gas in the air is almost like perfume to him, and thanks to that, he can focus on eliminating the monsters that swarm the dungeon. In a matter of minutes, he's being chased by an army of goblins, but he has also become so accustomed to fighting that things like this no longer affect him. He takes the time to think about the black market and how they operate. It's clear that they're not just a place that sells things. The potion Bezu gave him is incredibly effective. And it seems that every goblin in the dungeon is chasing him right now. There have to be at least hundreds chasing him. All have an E physical level and a D other level. Now that he's sure most of them are chasing him, he stops running and turns to face them. Then he activates his poison steps and lunges at them, eliminating a large number in a matter of seconds. The goblins immediately realize the mistake they've made and try to flee, but it's already too late for all of them. He eliminates them one by one, leaving small cuts on their bodies, which kill them immediately. While fighting, he wonders if there are other abilities he can use besides White Sleep. He considers asking B1, but after their last conversation about White Sleep, his pride won't allow it. But he's sure that as he continues to fight, he'll eventually get the answer to that question. After a long while of fighting, he sits on top of a huge pile of dead goblins. By now, he should have eliminated all the low-level goblins in the dungeon. He decides to check his status window and notices that his level has gone up a lot. Poison dungeons make his growth accelerate in ridiculous ways. He should be able to continue getting stronger, faster than he expected. Now that he has dealt with all the annoyances in the area, it's time for him to find the silver sunflower. Interestingly, there's a desert right next to the goblin forest that seems suspicious enough to have exactly what he needs. Just by being near it, he can tell that there's something in the area. As soon as he touches the desert sand, he notices something quickly approaching him from below the ground. A deadly beast lunges from the ground into the air before glaring at him menacingly. It's quite obvious that this monstrous poisonous centipede is the dungeon boss monster. It has a physical level of B and another level of A, with a 4-star difficulty. Just by seeing it, Heisen knows that he won't be able to keep his promise to Bezu to leave the dungeon early. Back in the dungeon's starting area, Bezu sighs as she realizes her companion is late. The pill's duration is almost over, and she'll soon need to leave the dungeon. She eventually realizes that he must have left her to fight elsewhere. Heisen has been trying to damage the poisonous centipede for a while now, but its exoskeleton is so tough that he can't stab it. He's been attacking the same spot for so long, but there are no results for his work. At this rate, he should be more concerned about surviving the fight than suppressing the monster. But no matter how tough the exoskeleton is, there must be a way to break it. It doesn't even seem to care about its own body as it lunges to try and take down Heisen. It doesn't seem like he can defeat it with physical attacks alone, and fighting on its body is a very risky move. In addition, the environment is concerning as the uneven terrain makes it difficult for him to use poison steps, given that the sand is unstable, meaning the effectiveness of his ability is reduced by half. However, he managed to find a silver lining in all this. During one of the many times he was thrown into the sky, he managed to notice the location of the silver sunflower. It doesn't suit the desert environment, so he was able to easily detect it. The problem is getting there to take it. And without the advantage of speed, he can't think of any way to pierce the thick exoskeleton. For now, he needs to resist as much as he can until he can find another solution. The monster goes for another attack, and he tries to use poison steps to escape, but the round sinks at the last moment, causing him to fall. The monster's attack lands squarely, and it is with such force that he has no chance to recover. His body hurts, and he feels as if every bone in his body is broken. Fortunately, he almost narrowly dodged. Otherwise, a direct hit from that thing surely would have killed him. He forces himself to get up as he heals his broken body. But at this rate, if things continue like this, then he won't be able to win. If he had some kind of support power, then he could go collect the silver sunflower while the monster is distracted, but he's here alone. Since he can't pierce it, there's no point in using White Sleep to subdue it. In response to his desires, Exa begins to change shape, reassembling into high-tech shoes that increase his speed. As soon as he hits the ground, he can already feel a significant difference in the environment. It feels like he's standing on flat ground. With this, he should reach a fast enough speed to pierce it. The monster pounces on him again, but this time, he's prepared and easily dodges. Then he runs behind it, dodging all its attacks, and finally manages to reach the silver sunflower. He picks it up and sets it aside. Then he prepares to finish off the boss once and for all. It would be good for him to get the core after killing it, but that would be dangerous since the dungeon is under the jurisdiction of the association. For now, he will need to hold back, as one mistake could make his life as a hunter more difficult. He plans to pierce it with white sleep, but the problem is that he can't get through its exoskeleton. Given that Hexa reacted when he talked about his speed and the unstable terrain, there's a high probability that his will is connected with XA, so he tries to make it change into something with high penetration power that allows him to pierce the tough shell and finally take it down. It works, and Exa transforms into a weapon with high penetration power and maximum performance. It looks like a drill head, and Hyson grabs it. Then he aims at the centipede before launching it with all his might. The drill hits directly, tearing through its skin before completely piercing it and coming out the other side of the monster. With that, the beast falls and Hyson can finally leave the dungeon. He wonders how many hours he has been fighting this thing, and his mind turns to Basu. Back with her, 7 hours have passed since they entered the dungeon, and she clenches her fist and imagines killing Hyson for abandoning her for so long. Hyson walks towards the exit with the silver sunflower in his hand. He cuddles up against it and wonders how much money he'll get from selling it. With this, he won't have to worry about money for a long time and can enjoy everything he wants. He finally reaches the dungeon entrance and finds Basu waiting for him. She's definitely not happy with him, having had to wait so long, and it looks like she's preparing to hit him. But when she grabs him by the collar, he notices purple spots beginning to appear on her body. Even though she took the pill, staying in a poison dungeon will always have its negative side effects, and from her condition, he can tell that she's already at her limit. Despite all that, she was waiting for him, and even prepared medicine to try and save him if he got injured. Hyson smiles and heals her poison wounds, and the sensation of healing energy flowing through her is as comforting as the first time he used it on her in the black market. Then they pack up and leave the dungeon while Hyson orders Pori to absorb the rest of the poison in Bezu's system. 2 months fly by after that incident, and the two have faced a total of 15 poison dungeons. In that time, they have managed to gather an additional silver sunflower and 5 bronze sunflowers. These will sell for enough money to fund their dream life for years. Furthermore, Hyson has adapted to seeing them live with him, and the three have formed a deeper bond as they cook, eat, and laugh together. But after so long, it's finally time for Bezu to leave. Hyson spends his last night together sitting outside behind his room, thinking about how sad he's going to be, as he's grown quite close to her at this point. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, almost at the same time every day, she starts saying strange things in her sleep. It's probably a sleep problem she doesn't know she has, or a trauma she's trying not to remember. But she calls out for her dad, and considering she doesn't say father, she's probably dreaming about her real father and not Yaka. It seems she also had a hard time despite being so carefree. The next day, it's time for her to leave, and she packs her things to take them back to the black market. Just before she leaves, Songhwa hugs Besu and tells her that in the last few months, they have become close enough to consider themselves sisters, so she can come to visit whenever she wants, and certainly soon. But Bezu embraces her and cries, promising that he will definitely come to visit her again. Even Heisei can't help but hope she returns soon for a visit. After that emotional farewell, the two return to the black market with their loot. It's been a while since Heixing was there, and things are notably calmer than the last time he was. Before, it was as if there were fights happening on every corner. And just like clockwork, a fight breaks out right in front of them. A client tries to harass a shopkeeper into giving him back his money, even though their deal is already over. The two start arguing, and it looks like they're going to fight soon. Hysin asks Bezu if he's going to stop them, as it seems to be getting serious. But she tells her partner not to worry. In the black market, the loser is to blame, but in this situation, there's a reason the seller lets himself lose. That's because there's always someone who steps in to handle altercations like these. He's practically the black market police, and just like a family, invoked, he eventually appears to stop the fight. He tells the bullying customer that he can't stand idly by while he disrupts market affairs. The customer stops hitting the shopkeeper and approaches the mysterious new fighter, who remains calm and serene. Despite the confrontation, he remains calm and even bows his head as if to avoid any conflict. But there's something in his voice. Hyzen recognizes it as a similar pressure to what he felt from Guggen. That means the newcomer could be as strong as the president of the Glory Guild. And it makes sense that someone like that would appear to subdue a problematic B-rank knight. The troublemaker is stronger than he looks, and definitely not just any nobody from the street. The punk approaches the black market cop and informs him that the reason he was hitting the shopkeeper is because the guy manipulated his prices. That makes him the victim in all of this. Although that's sad, the rules of the black market are quite clear. Once a deal is completed, it's closed forever. That means he still has no right to hit a shopkeeper trying to make a living. The troublemaker sighs and realizes it's useless to use his words. For now, it's better to use his fists. The man seems reluctant to fight, but with a punch flying straight at his face, he has no choice but to fight back. He moves with tremendous speed, deflecting the blow, and putting the troublemaker in a vulnerable position before he can even blink. The fight drags on from there, and in no time the problematic client is beaten and bruised, while the cleaner doesn't even have a speck on his clothes. But the thug isn't done yet, as he has something powerful up his sleeve. One of his abilities allows him to become stronger the longer he fights. It's an ability that allows someone to become stronger when they see blood. It's not pleasant to see your own blood, but that doesn't change the fact that this is a very dangerous ability. Just by the rising ether, Hashin can tell that this guy has already become someone threatening. Thanks to his ability, he is no longer a B-level knight. The thug gets arrogant and tells the man to beg on his knees but still throws several blows, ready to avenge all the pain he received a moment ago. But after the smoke clears, he realizes he's been hitting air all this time. The man appears by his side, as if nothing had happened, and in a fit of blind rage throws another punch. But this time, instead of simply dodging, the attack was completely redirected back to the sender, which went beyond having skills. And Hasing cannot comprehend how he did it even after seeing it happen. No matter how many times the thug tried to attack, each one was returned to him as a kind of reversal. At one point, he couldn't even touch the man and just kept hitting the air. After playing with the thug for a while, it's finally time to end the fight. Through some strange ability, the man seems to multiply and appear in 3 places at once. Then, each of them delivers a devastating blow to the thug, making him kneel and fall immediately. Despite how easy it seemed. The fight. Bisu tells him that it's rare for him to use so much force, meaning the troublemaker must have been quite strong. With the thug out of commission, Bisu takes out his phone and calls the other members of the cleanup crew to come and dispose of the troublemaker. Hysin remains focused on how monstrous that guy's strength was. And according to Bisu, that was only a fraction of his strength. Even after such an intense battle, he's barely out of breath. His physical abilities are like a knight's, but he also has the illusion magic of an esper. With no other way to verify, Hysen has to call B1 to scan the man's abilities. Surprisingly, B1 comes back with nothing. Apparently, the man's records have been erased, strongly implying that the man is not just an ordinary hunter. After a little more research, B1 finally returns with some good results. The man's name is Ojiho, and he is a 49-year-old hunter. Unfortunately, a lot of data about him has been erased, which still makes it difficult to get information about him, but B-1 manages to confirm that his physical level at the time of data deletion was that of an E-level knight. That shouldn't be possible, considering he just took care of a B-rank fighter very easily. But B-1 is never wrong about these things. Barely has time to contemplate more when the man appears right in front of him and scares Hasten out of his breath, putting aside his embarrassing screams. Hyzing and the man introduce themselves, and his friendly side is so different from the aggressive calm he had before that he can't get used to it. It's hard to believe someone like him is part of the black market. The 3 head to meet Yaka and exchange the sunflowers he obtained from the poisonous dungeons. Everything adds up to 7.5 billion won, and the black market's father congratulates him on graduating from poverty and making a lot of money. The conversation changes, and Yaka asks about the fact that he registered as a healer for the hunter exams. Hyacinth reveals that being a healer is only a part of his overall power, and the reason he wants to become one full-time is for his own personal goals, and also because he cannot use his original power as a hunter. Of course, he cannot talk about Kirill or his training with Dr. Jin, so the rest is classified information. But the little he has said so far seems to be enough for Yaka. The burly man decides to end his dealings for today. But Jason is not finished yet. Yaka warns him not to get any strange ideas, but decides to play along for now. Now, our protagonist decides to ask for an information fee for the things he has just revealed. The unorthodox request makes the father smile and asks what would happen if he refused to pay that fee, but Heising already knows that won't happen. When it comes to making deals, Yaka is the most reliable person in the black market. There's no way he'd refuse when asked for something like this. Besides, Heising is a pretty important merchant, and Yaka definitely wouldn't want to strain their relationship for an extra charge. Yacha is impressed and gives him 95 points for his confidence and negotiation skills. The remaining 5 points were deducted because he is too rude. With that, Yasha decides to accept the deal and offers more money. But Heisen has a different idea. He wants to train under Ojiho and learn his techniques. Yasha thinks for a moment, but the cost of information and learning combat techniques don't match up. Even if he hands over all the money he just earned, it still wouldn't be enough to pay for it. Heisen considers that a possibility and offers to return the rest of the money to Yacha as long as he can train. This is very risky, knowing exactly who he decides to owe. Yacha regularly breaks people for not paying their debts on time. Bisu tries to warn him before he makes a mistake that could end his life, but Heisen has already made a decision. The lethality of a poisoner is his greatest asset, but he lacks many other things when it comes to combat. Right now, it's a risk he has to take. Yacha asks the boy why he's going so far, and even making an obviously stupid decision, just to learn to fight better. Heisen tells him that the more weapons a hunter has, the better and stronger they are. He only saw Ojiho fight once, but that brief time is enough to convince him that those techniques will be very useful. He needs to invest in this right now to become stronger. All this time, he has only managed to defeat his enemies because of how powerful the poisonous steps are. When left alone to fight, he is no better than a beginner. Hunter. When a hunter awakens, it's very unlikely that their rank will change throughout their life, meaning Ojiho is probably still an E-rank hunter, yet he has such a strong martial art ability that it ignores ranks. Heisen puts the money briefcase back on the table and promises to get the rest of the money somehow. But right now he is desperate to close this deal and start training as soon as possible. Yacha can smell that desperation and decides to accept the deal. He also surprisingly returns the money to Heisen as he gains nothing by taking it. He will later reveal the true price of their deal after the training. With that done, the three leave the room, but before leaving, Yasha asks Jason if he has any intention of learning from the black market's father. The answer is an instant no, since Heisen has the common sense to know that training with such a man could kill him. And Heisen turns to leave as well, knowing that the hunter exams are the next big obstacle he must overcome. Bisu calls out to him as he leaves and wishes him good luck on the exam, which makes Heisen smile. He is more than sure that he will take first place in the exams. Hunter exams are held because, in addition to dungeons, there are also metahumans who choose to use their awakened powers to commit various crimes. So, the Hunter Association conducts an annual exam to recruit new talented individuals to join the ranks and fight for justice. The famous exam is known for having a high standard, and being a hunter is a job that brings more popularity than even celebrities. The entire country also focuses on the exam, with people constantly wondering if this year will be one where another S-rank hunter emerges. Amidst all this concern and interest, this year's hunter exam finally begins. Two people walk through the crowd of potential hunters, one looking particularly excited, while another seems bored with his job. The bored man asks his younger subordinate if an S-rank hunter will appear during this year's hunter exam. While the excited man is happy to give good news, the truth is that getting an S-rank is statistically difficult, so instead of an S-rank, he has more hope that a hunter who is encouraged by the people will appear. This year he wants to see a star hunter who gives everything to protect civilians, although recently there have only been criminals, and not many people have decided to use their powers for good. While they are discussing, a familiar face also walks through the crowd. It's Yuji-1, and as usual he captures the attention of everyone around him with a dazzling smile. He is a B rank that the whole nation is waiting for, and by his gentle attitude and disposition he is very aware of it. A reporter runs up to him to get the latest scoop on what his plans are. He applied to become a healer because he wants to protect people Unlike knights or espers who defeat monsters, he announces to the world that all he wants to do is save people. His aura is so bright that it blinds some people around him, and others can only watch in awe. However, the association member from before is completely indifferent. From his response, he can see that Yuji-won has no sense of duty or responsibility with his power. It's obvious that being a hunter for him is just a stepping stone for his other goals. The president of the Hunter Association is sick, and other leaders are corrupt, or there are dirty rumors about them. Guggen is also under a lot of controversy after what happened with Gaibondon. Good image, but right now people don't trust him as a hunter. The only person he can think of and is sure everyone can trust is someone from a long time ago. He considers that person to be the strongest and best hunter in the world, but he disappeared long ago and was forgotten due to a certain unmentioned incident, but they were long ago cast into the shadows, and just talking about them in public is enough for a person to be sent to prison. For now, they need someone else like that to emerge and conquer the world with their presence. They need someone with potential to be a star, and someone who does things for others without thinking of themselves. It so happens that the person he is thinking of is also walking through the crowd, and, just like UI-1, everyone looks at him as he heads to the registration desk. Even the woman who once looked at him with contempt watches him in awe. When he drops off his registration form and applies to be a healer, that person is Chio Hyson. Elsewhere, Yuji-won is having his own personal photo shoot with a cameraman who seems overly enthusiastic with his work. They stop for a moment to admire all the great photos that came out, and Yuji-won is proud of the fact that he is quite skilled in the modeling industry, while outwardly he has a humble expression and congratulates the photographer. Deep down he knows the real reason the photos came out so well is because he is an incredible model. The photographer asks if he can use the photos for an article and thinks of an idea for the title. He comes up with the title, The Savior of the Next Generation, What Will Happen, Maria? Yuji-won is happy with the extravagant title, but asks the photographer to wait to submit the article until he has reached the highest place in the ranks of metahumans. As the Glass Festival continues, Hysin walks by, heading towards the Hunter exam hall, and the photographer instantly notices him as someone of interest. Unfortunately, Yuji-won also notices him, but for the wrong reason. He accidentally bumps into him, causing the B-rank healer to fall to the ground and hit his head. He slowly opens his eyes and finds himself being held in a way that makes the whole crowd stop and look at him. The incident almost causes the entire manhwa genre to change. They get up from the ground, and Yuji-won adjusts his clothes while looking very angry about the incident. Hysin considers what he could do for the cleaning fee to take care of his clothes and offers exchange numbers to take care of the clothes later. However, Yuji-won throws his phone from his hands and claims it was an accident. He returns the phone to our protagonist, but the screen is damaged and he offers to pay for the repair cost later. He then approaches the protagonist and tells him to stop attracting so much attention. The spotlight is supposed to be on Yuji-won, and it will be problematic if someone else stands out more than him. With his intimidation done, he pats Hysin on the shoulder and turns to leave. But our protagonist is not the type of person to accept disrespect without doing anything. He calls the loudmouth again, and seems particularly angry that the guy decided to mock his clothes, especially since these clothes were made by his older sister. He then grabs Yuji-won by the neck and demands an apology with an intimidating gaze. The crowd that was looking in awe a moment ago now watches in disbelief as Hysin seems ready to beat up Yuji-won. Despite all the eyes on them, Yuji-won seems unaffected and prepares to respond something, but an announcement is heard over the loudspeakers saying that the meta-human score measurement event is about to begin. With the exams finally starting, people begin to enter the hall to take the test. But whispers about the person who fought with Yuji-won still spread through the crowd. Loudmouth takes the opportunity to make a bet with Hysin, while also forcing our protagonist's hand to release his shirt collar. From the strength Yuji-won showed in pushing his hand away, he can tell that he is a healer who has the strength of a knight. Something definitely seems wrong, but he doesn't have time to think about it, as Yuji-won sets the rules of their bet. Whoever has the highest score in the metahuman score measurement event will be the winner. The loser must give the winner 10 million won. In addition, if Hysin wins, his opponent must include an apology along with the money. Yuji-won thinks that's enough to scare our protagonist, but instead, Hysin has recorded the entire conversation as proof and warns him that he better pay as agreed later after the bet is over. This guy doesn't realize he just messed with the wrong person. As the event continues, Maria observes the crowd. and specifically Yu Won. The boy seems to have much more ether than the first time they met and has gone from an E-rank hunter to someone much stronger, which she is trying to figure out for herself. Yu Wang is not an official hunter yet, so he shouldn't have been able to enter dungeons, so it makes no sense that he has become so strong. Even she can tell that something is wrong. She decides to ask the president, who observes the crowd silently beside her. He responds very vaguely, and she realizes there is more to this than he is letting on. She already knows that a few months ago there were rumors that Yuji-won visited the research laboratory a lot, while most thought they were just showing him research products and giving him a tour. It's also possible that there could have been some kind of experiment underway. After visiting the research laboratory, Yuji-won gained a surprising amount of ether, and she is sure that something else happened behind the scenes. Time passes and people take their exams with scores ranging from hundreds to thousands. It seems that anyone below 1,000 points fails the exam. Eventually, Hyson and Yuji-won are called to take their exams together. The two stand in front of the measuring instrument and prepare to take their exams. Everyone is focused on this year's main prospect for the exams, Yuji-won. Whispers fill the crowd, as people wonder what score he will get. Given that he is the son of the vice president of the Glory Guild, people expect him to at least have some talent. Most of this year's newcomers were bad, so even a D rank would be welcomed by most guilds. Yuji-won confidently approaches the measuring device and places his hand on it, ready to show everyone the overwhelming difference in his power. The sphere glows with a soft golden light, and everyone is amazed as his ether spreads throughout the room. His abilities are on a completely different level compared to all the other applicants this year. At the end of the test, his metahuman score exceeds 9,000. With such a score, everyone is sure that he is going to get first place this year, and things don't look so good for Hyson. He is going to have to beat a record score like that to win the bet. Yuji-won watches arrogantly as Hyson approaches to have his own score calculated. Normally, such a score would be an insurmountable gap for anyone, but he doesn't seem worried at all. He walks confidently and places his hand on his orb, which immediately shines with a light several times brighter than the one Yuji-won demonstrated. His ether envelops the entire room in a powerful light, and the whole room exhales in shock. Even Guggen can barely believe what he's seeing. Once the light goes out, the room is silent at the results. Hyson's score cannot be measured. Yuji-won starts laughing and incorrectly guesses that Hyson's score cannot be measured because it is too low. He begins to deduce that the lights were probably caused by some kind of special effects. While making his unfounded conclusions, the staff from before push past him with their subordinate following closely. The staff member is the chief referee, and his name is Pyo Hyokyu, and his subordinate is Choi Gangyang. He orders everyone to step back as they address the problem with Hyson's results. In Gunjin's hands is a golden orb that looks much more powerful than the one they originally used to test their scores. They ask him to use the orb and measure his scores once more. It's much more sensitive than the last device, so even a little of his ether flow will be enough to get an accurate reading. This device is a golden core, and it is a high-quality core that is only used in boss monsters with a danger level of more than 7 stars. The fact that the device was made to measure a monster's ether means that the person they are using it for must be a monster in their own right. There has only been one hunter who has been measured with a gold core, but the results were not known. But now, Hyson has become the second hunter in which there has been a hunter achieve this feat. His result is a massive score of 100,000 points. In a matter of seconds, the crowd erupts in cheers and surrounds him. Out-of-place reporters start reporting that a new S-rank hunter has appeared. As hordes of people surround Hyson, he begins to feel overwhelmed by the number of people who suddenly want to talk to him. He is forced to use poisonous steps to escape his new rabid fans before they drag him away like zombies. Fortunately, he is fast enough that they cannot see where he disappeared. He takes the opportunity to escape. But first he has to collect his winnings from the arrogant plain Yuji-won. Despite clenching his fists so hard that blood begins to pool in his hands, he begins to apologize reluctantly. It seems that saying those words took a few years off his life, and Hyson even angrily threw his arms up for a moment before throwing a piece of paper with his account number. Then he leaves, while Yuji literally cries blood from rage and vows to kill this man who has managed to embarrass him like this. Elsewhere, two brothers observe the events unfolding in the room. They are Ga-han Chan and Ga-yale Chin, the guild masters of the B-Shop Guild. And Hyson's score is very interesting to them, The maximum score of the Gold Corps is 100,000 points. So for Hyzen to achieve that, it means they don't really know the limits of his power. The two decide that they must recruit him to join their guild no matter the cost, especially because all the good prospects were snatched from them last year. Next to them, someone else is also watching the scenes with a mixture of anger and excitement. It's Guggen. And what he has just seen has shown him that his initial assessment of Hyzen was very wrong. With the first test completed, the second test is a practical exam. Hyzen finds himself in front of a giant monster tiger, and his task is to heal it. The first test measures a hunter's potential, so this second test is a true demonstration of a hunter's healing ability. All targets are wounded monsters, and to test all they have to do is heal the monster. But it's obvious looking around that things have definitely turned against him. Everyone else has been given small monsters to heal, while his target is a giant tiger. This monster seems much stronger than the centipede he fought in the poison dungeon, and he wonders how they captured something so powerful. He cannot even identify its identity with B1's analysis, meaning this beast is something completely different from normal monsters. It's obvious that the vice president's son must have had something to do with this. Hyzen takes a moment to try to figure out how exactly he is going to heal this beast. When he suddenly hears a voice speaking to him, it's the tiger, and it asks if Hyzen is the man who will kill it. It seems that our protagonist is the only person who can hear it, and it doesn't sound happy at all. Humans once destroyed its core and left it in that lamentable state, but Hyzen assures the giant tiger that he is not there to kill it, but to save it. The monster does not believe him, and even if he is telling the truth, the tiger's core is already destroyed, meaning healing it is not going to be a simple task at all. Hyzen decides to show his healing abilities instead of making empty promises. He has to heal the tiger, because if it dies, things will be difficult for him too. With that, he activates his healing ability and the tiger is silently stunned as its wounds begin to heal. It is interesting to see him work on a target, as most participants have no healing experience. It's hard to believe he's a rookie hunter, and the Bishop Guildmasters are increasingly curious about him. The tiger also realizes that it's not the first time Hyzen has healed. Our main protagonist has the skills of someone who has practiced healing for hours without stopping. Hyzen also knows that healing a monster with a broken core will also harm him, and although he is already trembling from exhaustion, he is still determined to heal the tiger. The tiger urges him to finish his healing before he is seriously injured by the recoil. But Jason only feels more determined after hearing that. He assures the tiger that he is much stronger than he looks, and the tiger begins to wonder if he will really be able to heal all the wounds on his body. But Hyzen plans to go a step further. The tiger is surprised that Hyzen almost treats him like a human, as most of the time he is used to being cruel. But in the same way, monsters kill humans to fill their stomachs, so it's normal to hate them. But that's no different from what humans do to each other. And at the same time, there are probably monsters that can save humans, so there's no reason for Hyzen to refuse to save a life just because it's a monster. With that, the healing is done, and as an additional service, Hyzen weakened the chains that bind the monster to the facility. When the time is right, the tiger can take the opportunity to break the chains and escape. Monster calls Hyzen a scatterbrained fool, but thanks him anyway. He tells Hyzen that this is the second time he has felt compassion from a human, the first being a mysterious woman. Then he reveals his true form. The tiger is not a monster. It is actually a spirit, and is known as the guardian spirit of the great spirit world, the Imperial Tiger. After introducing himself, he asks Hyzen his name, and our protagonist introduces himself as the man who will become the strongest hunter in the world. With that, the Imperial Tiger promises that half of its life will belong to Hyzen. Our protagonist appreciates gaining a new companion and nicknames him Big Tiger, since he is a very large tiger. The Imperial Tiger Spirit is too long a name for him to remember. Enormous Tiger sighs with irritation, but doesn't argue as they don't have time. The test is over, and it's time for them to conclude it. Referee Pio announced that Hyzen has passed the test, and he walks away victorious. Meanwhile, someone else is having a lot of difficulty finishing their practical test. Yu-Gai-One has been working to try to heal the small monster in front of him, but unfortunately his time is run out. One of the staff members comes to tell him that he has to leave the hall, but the vice president's son begs for just one more minute to practice his healing. However, the exam is already over, and it seems that he is the only one who failed to heal his target. Referee Pio calls over the announcement system and tells Yu Ji-won to stop using his abilities immediately. The exam needs to be fair to everyone, and if they gave him extra time, then it would be unfair to the other participants. Yu Yi-wong angrily asks Pio what department he is from and threatens to report him to the vice president for this lack of answers. Pio doesn't care and tells Gang Jun to escort him out. The younger referee happily does so and leads the young man out while he kicks and screams. This is not only for the sake of the exam, but also for Yu Ji-won's sake, as it seems he is in danger of ether exhaustion. As soon as he hears that, Yu Ji-won realizes for the first time that his nose is bleeding. Despite that, the young man still begs for another chance, but it's too late. He barely passed this time, but only by luck, and nothing more. While the entire confrontation is happening, Hysen walks past them on his way out. The two men notice each other, and Hysen silently mocks him before laughing and walking away, leaving Yu Ji-won even more embarrassed than before. Later, Pio is called to the vice president's office, and the man is not happy with the way his son was treated. Did he hear that his son was classified as E-level? And Pio confirms that, although he scored well on the first test, he did not show good results on the practical test. But the vice president does not want to hear any of that. He throws things from his desk in rage and accuses the referee of obstructing Yu Ji-won's exam. The vice president continues yelling at his subordinate, but the man is barely heard. Instead, his mind wanders to the ailing president who hasn't been seen in a while. Then, the vice president asks about the golden core that was used during the exam. Apparently, after Hysen used it, it ended up broken, and the man was upset about how expensive it was. The core completely deteriorated because some kind of toxic ether was introduced into it directly after Hysen took the exam. It is now completely unusable, and the vice president orders it to be discarded. Back in the main hall, Hysen personally receives his hunter badge from Maria, while a crowd of reporters gathers around him and takes photos. With the hunter exam finally over, he has been officially classified as an S-rank healer. Yu Ji-won, on the other hand, barely passed with an E-rank. He had too much ether for his skill level, and now, because of his boasting, everyone knows it. With his work at the association done, Hysen plans to go home. But as soon as he walks through the doors of the building, he is surrounded by an army of reporters eager to get the scoop on Korea's new great S-rank hunter. It's impressive that so many people have come to interview him even though he just passed the exam. It seems rumors really travel strangely. Some of the reporters get too close to his face, and he can barely contain his irritation as they push microphones directly at him. Then the reporters start fighting among themselves, completely crushing Hysen's face and making him finally take matters into his own hands. He grabs the first microphone he sees and yells into it, ordering everyone to shut up and listen. The crowd falls silent for a moment, and everyone turns to look at Hysen, with all their attention on him. He tells them that he will not be doing interviews for now before using poisonous steps to take off into the sky. Faster than anyone can see, he lands on the association's rooftop and prepares to run home. But once again he is stopped by the two Bishop Guild masters who have been observing him all this time. They introduce themselves and get straight to the point, asking him to join the Bishop Guild. In return, they promise that they will listen to all his demands. Hysen rejects their offer and tells them that he has no plans to join a guild at this time. But someone else joins the conversation, and it's clear he won't take no for an answer. President Guggen appears, and his menacing aura changes the entire atmosphere of the conversation. He then asks Hysen to join the Glory Guild. Later, a car speeds down the highway. Inside, the driver talks about the fact that Yu Ji-won barely passed as an E-rank. Apparently he was born defective, so no amount of experimentation done to him would solve that problem. Somehow, he still managed to join the Glory Guild with so little talent, but his results could have been better if he wasn't so careless. As he keeps talking non-stop, he notices that the man he's carrying has a happy smile on his face. It's Guggen, and he's especially pleased today because something interesting happened. Earlier, on the rooftops, Hysen didn't seem happy at all that Guggen had the audacity to ask him to join the Glory Guild. Ji Yu-gung, especially, is not in a position to make him offers at all. Joel Ching, not understanding the history between the two, thinks Hysen is referring to the fact that Bishop Guild came there to ask him to join first. He tries to push Guggen away, but the man swats his intrusive hand away as if it were an annoying pest. Han Chang is not happy with someone touching his brother so disrespectfully, and activates his ice-based abilities to threaten Guggen. The president of the Glory Guild is not affected at all, and uses his ether to break all the ice attacks. It seems a fight is brewing between the three men, and things are about to get very tense from the looks of it. Han Chan mocks Gugun for his sudden burst of confidence, because no matter how much they hit him, he will always have Maria to heal him. That pushes Gugun to attack first, and he lunges with a punch, but it is easily blocked by Yuljin, who also looks incredibly angry that the man tried to hurt his brother. The two brothers are actually S-Rank, just like Gugun, and a fight between the three could completely destroy the city. Yuljin tells his brother to stop the massive attack he was preparing to unleash, as they are in a residential area. Their recruitment is already a failure at this point, as they have shown Hyson an embarrassing scene by fighting among themselves. They ask him to consider their offer so they can recruit him another time, but he immediately refuses it. The Bishop Guild is too far from where he lives, but if they allow him to work from home, then he will consider their offer, but although he refuses to work for them, he would rather die than join the Glory Guild. Gugun smiles and tells him that his stubbornness will only last for now. But in the end, the place he belongs is the Glory Guild. With that, all the men retreated, and no agreement was reached with the new S-Rank Hyson. Now that he has been officially registered as a hunter, it is time for him to face the next part of being a legal hunter. This part is the beginning of every hunter's career, as they struggle with the very familiar concept of death. Many dungeon hunters have been killed in beginner dungeons because they overestimate themselves and enter beginner dungeons alone, leading to their meaningless deaths. Because of that, the Hunter Association made a special rule stating that all hunters must complete 5 dungeons of 3 stars or less in groups of 5 before they can enter dungeons suitable for their levels alone. This system is called the Hunter Probation System, and because of this, although Hyson is strong enough to enter normal dungeons alone, he also has to start from the beginning and work his way up to avoid problems. He arrives at his pre-assigned meeting point and joins his new teammates. 2 of them are especially excited to see him and run to introduce themselves. They are Doyu Seon and Doyu Chang, expert brothers who are working together as new hunters. Hyson introduces himself, then asks about the other 2 who were supposed to be with them. The other 2 teammates don't seem as friendly as the brothers, and laugh when they see Hyson before introducing themselves. One is named Park Hyosang, and the other is Kim Cho-ho. They clearly look and act like thugs, and Hyson is annoyed at how stereotypical they are. Then they ask him if he wants to have a meeting before entering the dungeon. Hyson has to lie, saying this is his first dungeon, because he cannot casually reveal that he has been illegally entering dungeons, let alone poison dungeons. He has actually been in over 10 dungeons. The 2 thugs then offer to support him, as they are supposed to be veteran hunters who know how to handle dungeons. They underestimate Hyson's fighting skills since he is only a healer despite being C. He offers to help him defeat the monsters in the dungeon in exchange for a small fee. Hyson stares at him and asks what would happen if he said no. And although Park Hyosang initially stared back, he immediately hid it and told the S-Rank that nothing would happen if he said no. After all, they are only trying to help beginner hunters, so there is nothing they can do if their help is rejected. They inform him that 2 expert brothers have already paid them money anyway, which they hope will convince Hyson to pay, but it's obvious they have more sinister intentions. Both are knights with a physical level of D, so dungeons like this would be really easy. So why are they accepting small amounts of money and entering low-level dungeons instead of joining any guild and making a name for themselves? It's obvious they were expelled from their guild and became vagrants as a result. Now they earn money by taking from beginner hunters who would be afraid to enter their first dungeons. With the meeting over, it's time for them to enter the dungeon, and Hyson is prepared to kill them if they cross the line. Inside the dungeon, the group fights E-level monsters with a difficulty of 1. The 2 D-rank hunters seem to be having a great time, but they are too excited when fighting 1-star enemies. It's obvious they are pretending to fight with all their might, while letting small groups slip towards Hyson's direction from time to time. Most likely he didn't pay them for their services, so they are taking it out on him. If it were anyone else in the situation, someone might get hurt because of them. Meanwhile, the 2 experts are enjoying the show the D-level hunters are putting on. Hyson asks why they aren't fighting despite being in a dungeon as hunters. They spent a lot of money, but they should still take the opportunity to hunt some small ones and gain experience. Clearly, the 2 have no confidence in their abilities, but doing nothing is much worse for their growth than anything else. Hyson reminds them that hunters are just very large rats, and even if they get hurt, they are associated with an experienced healer. With a little motivation, the 2 decide to join the fight, irritating the D-level hunters who were already prepared to take on the entire dungeon themselves. The two try to intimidate the expert brothers by telling them that a house-sized rodent will soon appear, and as if on cue, a loud roar shakes the entire area as something large heads towards them. With the boss on its way, the hunters demand an extra $1,000,000 if they want to continue receiving protection. They try to argue that this was not in their agreement, but the two finally show their true colors. They blame their sudden indifference on Ha-Sing, who refused to pay them earlier. They hope that he, being just a healer, will give in to the pressure and finally give them money. Being S-level demands a lot of responsibility, and now that he is S-level, he cannot help but attract people's attention. The two experts try to defend Ha-Sing as he has done nothing wrong, but the D-level hunters are not afraid of repercussions. After all, Ha-Sing has no guild backing him, which means they can do whatever they want. With that in mind, the two decide to stand still and not help them fight the boss, unless Ha-Sing gives them the money they ask for. If not, they will inflict wounds on themselves and spread rumors that the S-level healer tried to kill them. Ha-Sing has been silent all this time, listening to their empty threats without saying a word, and they mistake that for fear. Spark Ha-Sing even considers recording him fighting a one-star dungeon and posting it online to mock him further. He could even make money selling that kind of video online. A proud S-level hunter wouldn't want his weaknesses exposed that way, after all. Ha-Sing finally moves and walks towards the hunters who have been talking too long. He tells them that when he was young, he thought hunters were amazing and cool. Now that he's interacting with them, he can see that they are totally useless people. The two hunters have gone too far with their plan, and Ha-Sing is more than angry at their stupidity. Suddenly, the two D-level hunters are paralyzed by Ha-Sing's ether surrounding them. Park Hyo-san still tries to take control of the situation and tells Ha-Sing that he will report anything he does to the media. But Ha-Sing is still unimpressed by their insignificant threats. He asks them if they know a hunter who received a personal lesson from Gugung. He reveals that the person who received that lesson was him. Although he hates using that man's name, in this situation he will play any card he can to make sure these two learn their lesson. Park Hyo-sang definitely remembers hearing something like that recently in a news article. If that's really true, then there's no way anyone in the media will help him out of this situation. He still tries to force the situation and starts to wonder if he should kill Ha-Sing for his actions, but immediately notices that something is wrong. Ha-Sing is behind them, holding Hexa in his white dream state, as the two men realize they cannot move. Now the tables have completely turned, and it is clear that Ha-Sing is in full control of the current situation. The two have finally understood the situation they are in, and they can finally stop acting like third-rate villains. Ha-Sing's penetrating gaze is enough to convince them that they are completely powerless in this situation. He tells them he is not afraid of the world's eyes being on him. His previous confidence has completely disappeared, and Ha-Sing wonders if White Dream even managed to paralyze their tongues now that the situation has completely reversed. Ha-Sing makes an offer to the men, given that the two are out of commission for the moment and there is a boss monster on the way. They are currently in a very serious situation. If things continue like this, Ha-Sing cannot guarantee they will survive. But if they want his help to get them through, they will have to pay him a small fee. After saying that, he demonstrates how powerful he is by sending the boss monster flying with a single kick. Kim Chu-ho notices that Ha-Sing didn't kick the boss monster hard enough, meaning he's as weak as they thought. Plus, his attacks are making the giant rodent even angrier. Park Hyo-san, on the other hand, realizes that the way Ha-Sing moves is beyond the capabilities of an average healer. He then realizes that Ha-Sing is deliberately trying to make him angrier, so he will charge towards her. Even the two experts are so surprised they laugh in confusion, as Ha-Sing guides the monster directly towards the two D-level hunters. The monster approaches, and Ha-Sing gets very close to Park Hyo-sang, so he can whisper in his ear. From the intimidation he is receiving and the anger on Ha-Sing's face, Park Hyo-sang can tell that if he doesn't listen to the S-level healer, he will die right there. He has heard Ha-Sing called many things: a beggar from Gay Bondon who knows nothing, an S-level hunter who is only 20 years old, and the next Maria. But one thing is for sure, this man is the one who will kill them if they don't hurry up and give him an answer. The two men begin to scream in terror, just as the monster is centimeters from their faces, and Ha-Sing decides that enough self-reflection for them for now. As they should have learned, The lesson: he dispatches the monster with a quick kick, sending it flying into the sky. Then, before it lands, he uses poisonous steps to run right behind it. All this time, fighting boss monsters, he has had to be careful not to kill them. But now fighting is much easier when he doesn't hold back. Now he can fight with all his strength, and thanks to that, this monster is even easier to kill than the goblins he fled from in his third dungeon. The others are surprised that a healer can move so fast, and Park Hyo-sang is stunned with fear now that he has understood that he messed with the wrong person. Before he can think more about it, Hasten appears right behind him and places a hand on the man. Our protagonist stops the paralysis, and the two men slowly begin to regain feeling in their bodies. Despite that, Park Hyo-sang still remains motionless, as the fact that they lost so quickly begins to sink into his mind. His friend, Kim Chu-ho, is not as perceptive and seems to be ready to fight Haisen, not realizing who he is trying to fight. Park Hyo-sung has to stop the man before he starts something he clearly cannot finish. The two have lost, and Haisen has completely ruined their deal. But it is obvious that if they attack him, they will be the ones who get hit. Park Hyo-sung decides to drop his bully ways from now on. It seems his encounter with Haisen has completely scared him. As the two argue, the brothers approach to thank Haisen for his help. Our boy was incredibly strong and hasn't even boasted about it all this time. He is also incredibly kind, and even decided to take care of weaker people. All these things make them call him a hero, and Haisen cannot help but smile slightly at the sudden praise. The three end up laughing as they leave the dungeon, still praising Haisen. As everyone leaves the dungeon, Haisen returns the money that was stolen from the two D-level thugs. He got the money from the two thugs and immediately sent it to the brothers, as it had originally been taken from them. They try to convince him to take the money back since he fairly earned it by tricking the thugs, but he refuses. Du Yu-chun sighs and smiles, admitting that he is lost. Even if they continue to argue about it, Hasim is too stubborn to change his mind. Although that is the case, he simply cannot let him part ways like that. He gives Haisen a card from a company called the Umbrella Industry. Haisen feels he has heard the name before somewhere, but has no idea why they are giving him the card, until he sees the name of CEO Doiso. The CEO has the same last name as the two brothers, meaning they are probably related. Du Yu-chang confirms that the person on the card is their father, which also means that these two are probably incredibly rich. The fact that he was so proud of the money before, when these two were rich, causes him much embarrassment. He stays there embarrassed, while the brothers leave the place and say goodbye to him as they go. Haisen finally heads home and counts his loot from the one-star dungeon. He only managed to get 12 cores and they are all weak, as it is a beginner dungeon. All this time he has only absorbed black cores, which are cores extracted from poisonous monsters in poison-filled dungeons. Normal hunters cannot absorb them, but those are his cores of choice. This will be the first time he absorbs normal cores. And according to B1, he has no limits to absorb them. That also means he won't have to exclusively go to poison dungeons when he needs to level up. The cores are absorbed quickly, and they were much weaker than he thought. After a brief review of his status window, he realizes that he barely gained anything from absorbing those weak cores, but he also notices that he gained a new skill called Commuter. It allows him to communicate with monsters and also gives him limited communication options with sentient creatures. The ability must have appeared due to his close relationship with Pori, and it is also the reason why he was able to communicate with Great Tiger before. Now his main problem is figuring out how he will continue to strengthen himself. He is still weak, and his progress is already slowing down, and he starts to consider illegally entering poison dungeons again. He needs the black cores from poison monsters to grow, since black cores have several times more ether than other cores. The amount of ether in black cores is so tempting that intensive experiments were once carried out to find out how to use them, but all failed. Therefore, black cores are considered toxic waste, and no one recognizes them as a real energy source. But for poisoners, black cores are their main source of growth, and it is thanks to them that they can grow much faster than other hunters. Absorbing cores is the best way to improve a hunter's abilities, and since getting high-level cores is usually very expensive, most hunters cannot progress in their growth and end up staying at the level they were at when they first awakened for the first time. He has to thank Dr. Jim for having all this information, but knowing all this doesn't change the fact that his progress is too slow. The only thing apart from a black core that could give him a significant power boost would be the golden core they used to measure his power during the hunter exam. If he could absorb something like that, then he could definitely become incredibly strong, but for now there's no way he can achieve it. Meanwhile, outside his house, two familiar faces knock on his door. He wasn't expecting anyone to arrive at this time, and opens the door to see the two referees from the hunter exam smiling at him. They saw the news article that talked about how he finished his first dungeon in style and decided to come congratulate him personally. Hyzen greets the two men as they introduce themselves and congratulate him on becoming an S-level hunter, but our protagonist is more interested in why they are there in the first place. Pyo reveals that he knows Hasen's growth has drastically slowed down, and for that reason they have a lot to talk about over tea. They come in and Hysen prepares tea, as well as some cookies and snacks for them to eat while they chat. His sister is not there and he wasn't expecting visitors, so they will be alone to chat for a while at least. With the initial compliments out of the way, Hysen gets straight to the point and asks the two what they have to tell him. Shokyu asks Hasen if he is aware of the news about the dungeons that have been appearing recently. Apparently there has been an increase in the appearance of dungeons that cannot be managed by the Hunter Association or by any guild. Ensuginden, Chansindong, and Imedon, 3 different dungeons appeared just yesterday. And that's why a Code Yellow emergency alert was announced. Code Yellow is the 3rd most serious type of warning signal. And the Double Gates incident that started Hysen's life as a hunter was also a Code Yellow. Fortunately, there were no casualties this time, as the warning was more about the strange situation than the danger. What makes this situation particularly strange is the fact that a monster came out of a dungeon. There are 2 types of portals, a dungeon and a gate. Dungeons are one-way portals that lead to another world full of monsters, while gates are like entrances through which hunters can enter and monsters can exit. Usually, gates only occur when dungeons become filled with monsters, and in that situation, something known as a gate flood occurs, where monsters break into the real world. But in this scenario, monsters began to come out while the portals were still dungeons and not gates, which explains why a Code Yellow was announced due to how strange this occurrence is. Fortunately, there was very minor damage and no casualties, but that's only because the dungeon is quite weak. If it had been a 3-star dungeon, the damage would have been immeasurable. Due to the seriousness of the situation, the association is keeping quiet about the incident, but hiding something will not solve the problem. Hysen knows that, and Yokyu apologizes about it, because even he knows it, but more importantly, the current Hunter Association can barely handle the situation, because there is a labor shortage right now. More dungeons have started appearing than there are people to close them, and with the concern that monsters can now jump out of each of them, it is starting to cause serious panic in the hunter world. During all this chaos, Pyo heard some interesting news. The Imperial Tiger was healed during the last hunter exam. The Imperial Tiger is a monster known to be in an unrecoverable state. Now, not only were the tiger's external wounds healed, but the poison inside the tiger was also removed, which is miraculous in itself. The entire association would go crazy trying to find who healed the huge tiger that had been abandoned. And Pyo knew as soon as he found out that Hysen was the person they were looking for. Pyo continued to investigate more about Hysen's abilities and what he can do, but all he found was more and more praise. That only made him want our protagonist even more, and he finally decided to come so they could introduce themselves. As far as he knows, Hasen is not associated with any guild and does not seem to be involved in other activities either. Then Pyo asks Hysen what he thinks about poisonous dungeons. According to the information he has gathered, he knows that there is no one more suitable to face those dungeons than Hysen. Hysen tries to cover up by saying that an S-level healer should be able to clear a low-level poison dungeon without problems, but the truth is that the job is more than just a suitable job for him. Poison dungeons are even easier for him than regular dungeons, but the question is, how did this guy find that out, and why does he even need to work with him in the first place? If he decides to accept this request without thinking, then he will end up being dragged around by the Hunter Association, but he also hates to see people get hurt. For now, he needs to try to find a way to be on equal footing with the man and find out exactly what he gains from this exchange. Pyo already prepared a reward for Hysen in exchange for his cooperation and takes out the golden core from before. It is currently corrupted with dark ether that somehow infiltrated the core after being used to measure his ether abilities. At first, Pyo wondered if Hysen was to blame for the corruption, but it is obvious that that cannot be possible. Hysen laughs along with the man, but he also knows that he is most likely to blame. The dark ether inside the core probably mixed from him while he was measuring it. But if he is caught as the person who damaged such an expensive core, he will definitely become a slave to the Hunter Association. They were planning to get rid of it, but throwing away such an expensive core would be a waste, even if it is corrupted. But Pyojiochu somehow felt that Hyson would put it to some use. It is obvious that even though the man is speaking calmly, he is trying to probe Hyson and read his reactions. A golden core that has lost its abilities is usually just trash, but he can simply absorb the black ether along with the core at once. So the fact that Pyojiochu is giving him this means that he is directly asking if Hyson can use this core, since for most others, absorbing it would harm them. The man's objectives are unclear, and at this moment it seems that his main objective is simply to satisfy his own curiosity. But that doesn't matter to Hyson at all. The Golden Core, in addition to being able to legally explore poison dungeons, is too good a reward to refuse. The Golden Core reminds Hyson of the story of a woman with a bucket of water. She placed a single leaf on top of the water as she handed it to a traveler, hoping to help him avoid a stomachache. But the Golden Core is not like a bucket of water, but rather like a storm in the ocean. Right now, all he can do is think about how strong he will become after absorbing the Golden Core. Unfortunately, at this moment there is also a right hook coming straight for his chin. The blow sends him flying backward and immediately wipes the smile off his face. Ojiho, the man who threw the punch, leans down to help him up. Thanks to his deal with Yaka, he managed to secure these training sessions with Ojiho to learn the skill known as snapback. Unlike what you would expect from people who frequent the black market, he is kind to everyone. Recently, however, Hyson has realized that there is no one more evil than him. His training involves repeated beatings that leave him on the ground. It is no exaggeration to say that the man training him is stronger than any monster he has faced so far. As soon as Hyson stands up again, Ojiho resumes the training, moving so fast that it seems he teleports. Then, in the blink of an eye, Hyson is thrown back again with a sharp kick to the face. At this point, this has gone from a simple training exercise to a one-sided beating. From his training bouts, Ojiho can tell that our protagonist lacks a basic fighting foundation. At this rate, it will be difficult for them to learn the necessary skills to learn snapback. Hyson is still determined to learn it no matter the cost. He made a risky deal with Yacha to learn it, so it would be a shame for that to go to waste if he gave up. Hyson activates poisonous steps, and for a moment, Ojiho is impressed and correctly guesses that this must be the ability he used to defeat the hyena. It's pretty fast, but it also makes Ojiho think that Hyson should learn to move his body again. Before our protagonist can land a blow, Ojiho uses snapback on him, spinning his dagger just before it can land a hit. However, this brief demonstration is enough for Ojiho to see the potential of teaching Hyson. For now, our protagonist has to learn basic movements and techniques to learn how to use a knight's abilities. They start with rigid body, which is a training method used to strengthen a knight's body. Hyson takes the opportunity to ask his new master how long it took him to learn his current abilities. Ojiho reveals that just the basic movements took him 10 years to master. If that's the case, then he's going to be very late to attend Kiril, while Hyson continues to practice rigid body. Visu enters the room just as Hyson was planning to take a break. So far, he can barely tell if he has made any progress. But for now, all he can do is try to move forward as much as possible. Bisu notices his worried expression and decides to give him a hint. He tells him that there is something peculiar about Ojiho's techniques. Every time the man uses his abilities, Bisu can notice a peculiar smell in the air. It's more like a sensation than a scent, and it's quite similar to the effects of poisonous poppy. If it's similar to poisonous poppy, then that means the abilities must be more like hallucinations. The mysterious movements could be caused by something else that cannot be seen. Perhaps Ojiho is not a knight after all, and is actually an esper. Espers are hunters who use an unseen force to perform unimaginable feats. Thanks to that little bit of information, the last pieces of the puzzle begin to fit together. Hyson deduces that the abilities are probably controlled by a multiple skill bearer, and Ojiho must be using two separate abilities at the same time. The second ability he is using is probably telekinesis, and that was the clue he was looking for to discover the recoil. The problem now is finding a way to obtain that ability in first place. All espers use some form of telekinesis related with their powers. It is a very simple ability, but it has countless uses. Knights are strong, but when facing multiple enemies at once, espers are easily superior. There's no better place to see it in action than a dungeon alongside an esper. Right now he is participating with another group of hunters in a beginner's dungeon, and one of them turns out to be an expert with the ability to control lightning. The man's name is Li Cheng, and he manages to kill a large group of monsters with a single attack. He is only a C-level hunter, but his attacks are flashy enough to impress the rest of his group. The guy talks enough to give any hunter an earache, but he is known as the emerging esper, who also delusionally sees himself as Hysan's rival. Although the current outing is quite easy thanks to the guy, his constant chatter already makes Hysan want to go home. While Li Cheng runs off to fight more monsters, Hysan takes a moment to talk to one of the other hunters in the group. Apparently his guild went to great lengths to try and recruit him, and his abilities are as impressive as his appearance. The guild's name is the Orinotan Guild, and the woman he is talking to is one of the veterans there. But it seems she was respecting Li Cheng for a moment back there. That's because everyone in the party likes Li Cheng, and it seems he has a small fan club with him right now. Everyone cheers him on as he defeats the monsters, and that makes his abilities even more showy to impress them more. It's a simple relationship, and everyone seems happy with it. Then the woman asks him if he has any plans after the dungeon raid. Everyone is going out for a company dinner, and it would be great if he could join them. But he has to decline the invitation because he has to train with Ojiho after the raid. The woman is impressed by the fact that he has the motivation to train even after fighting in a dungeon, although it is not healing practice. It is movement practice that Ojiho has been forcing him to master for several days. While they talk, Li Cheng notices something and calls one of his other guild members to come look. The man happily runs to see what it is, but the joyous smile on his face is immediately replaced by an expression of terror. It is a light coming from the ground, and although it looks like an X, it is not a treasure. The atmosphere in the group changes immediately, and everyone runs for cover. The hole in the ground is actually a gate to a second dungeon, and they are a little late to take cover when the dungeon opens, causing everyone to fall into it. With no way to protect themselves, they decide to protect Hysan as their first priority. It's bad luck that they discovered this place when it was already too late. The dungeon is starting to collapse, and people are falling into the hole one by one with no way to protect themselves. At this rate, everyone will end up falling to their death, with no hope of survival. All the guild members who were chatting happily a moment ago begin to fall to their deaths. Li Cheng is stunned and silent, as he watches all his guildmates disappear, and begins to cry, realizing that their deaths could be his fault. But Hysan's stern voice pulls him out of his reverie. He runs next to Li Cheng and encourages the esper to enter the hole and chase after them if he wants to save them. He shouldn't be stunned, now that his friends are falling to their deaths right below them. If they didn't die on impact, then they can save them all. Li Cheng watches as Hysan bravely jumps into the hole to save his friends. He is scared, but the idea that someone he just met today would fearlessly jump into danger to save his friends prompts him to jump too, and he cannot stand by and watch this happen. At this moment, losing his guild members is 100 times scarier than whatever is in the hole. The two discuss how they are going to save them, and it's not going to be easy. For starters, Li Cheng can throw a shield to save them from fall damage, but his limit is 4 people. In addition to that, there are some who have fallen beyond his reach. Fortunately for them, saving 4 people is enough while Hysan can take care of the rest. Our protagonist activates Hexa and uses it to form support platforms that he can use to activate poison steps in the air, then he hurries to save them himself. He has only heard of second dungeons so far, and has never seen one himself. That's why he reacted slowly when the dungeon initially opened and everyone started falling in. Most of them must have passed out from the impact when the dungeon collapsed, so they cannot protect themselves from the fall. He tells EXA to spread the platforms wide to have more room to jump. Since Li Cheng can catch 4 people, all he has to do is get the remaining 2, and they will be able to save everyone. He launches himself through the air and manages to grab the 2 who had fallen furthest from them, and he did it just in time as they are about to reach their destination. The atmosphere in the dungeon has completely changed after the collapse and is very different from how it originally looked. They finally arrive at the second dungeon, and Li Cheng runs to check if Hysan is okay. He is somehow completely unharmed despite the big fall they just had, and thanks to his quick thinking, they managed to successfully save everyone. The 2 he picked up are still asleep but grateful, safe, and alive. Their emotional reunion can wait, as the dungeon monsters have already come out to greet them. They are harpies with a physical level of B and another level of B, and they have a difficulty level of 4 stars. Li Cheng considers the fight dangerous, but Hysan knows he should be able to eliminate them easily. A touch of Hexa should kill them all immediately, and it will be too easy for him to eliminate them, all at once. Lijai Chang mistakes Haisung's calm reading of the situation as the healer wanting to avoid direct conflict and decides to go forward and fight while Haisen stays behind. Fortunately, before he can throw himself into a losing fight, the rest of his guild members wake up to support him. First, they thank Haisen for saving their lives. Then they tell him not to worry about the fight and just focus on healing him when they need it. Haisen decides to cross his arms and watch the fight, but he worries that they might not be able to win. Despite the enormous odds against them, the group forms and prepares to face the Harpies. The first person to launch an attack is an Esper of level B who shoots strange cards into the sky before detonating them for a massive explosion. The sky fills with fire for a moment, and people start to think that the second dungeon might be easier than they thought. However, despite the Esper using most of his strength, the Harpies are completely unfazed by the attack. Then they start to approach, and it's time for the real fight to begin. The group is holding their own, probably because they have a lot of dungeon experience, but it's obvious after a while that the fight is far beyond their abilities. The group is holding their own, probably because they have a lot of dungeon experience, but it's obvious after a while that the fight is far beyond their abilities. There are too many monsters, and the Harpies begin to eliminate them one by one. They only stay alive by his healing. The woman he was talking to earlier is the one he is healing right now, and she tells him that he should run away now that he has the chance. The fight is clearly lost, and it would be a shame for the world to lose a powerful S-level hunter because of a double dungeon. Haisen, on the other hand, decides to do something better than just escaping by himself. He has been distractedly watching them all this time, but a healer's job is to make sure people don't get hurt. The woman tries to stop him, thinking he is just rushing to his death. From her perspective, the fight is already lost, and Haisen running to fight is practically suicide. But our protagonist knows that giving up without trying is very laughable. He also knows that he will be able to win this fight. He bet a long time ago that this would be an easy fight for him. The woman still doubts that he can do much in this situation as a healer. What they need now is a damage dealer, and she doesn't think he has the strength to defeat so many monsters. Haisen agrees with her that healers tend to rely heavily on their teammates and function primarily as support roles. But right now he is not just an ordinary healer. Then he throws Hexa towards the Harpies and flies past the group of tired hunters, managing to hit one in the stomach with enough force to disintegrate it. His initial attack only managed to kill a few at first, so he has to go forward himself and eliminate them on his own. He uses Poisoned Step to close the distance, jump into the air, and take out more Harpies along the way. The other guild members can only stand and watch as he goes through all the monsters in a matter of seconds. Although he is overpowering the monsters with great ease, there are simply too many of them, and at this rate he won't be able to go home. Since he cannot use Poison Rain in these situations, he tells it to hurry and transform into something that will allow him to finish quickly. The weapon turns into a shotgun, which is even more disconcerting for the other guild members, as they watch him shoot all the Harpies in seconds with the weapon. For a moment the Harpies seem to be completely immune to the bullets, and it almost seems like the rest of the guild will have to step in to help, but Haisen tells them to calm down. If they were common bullets, then it would be useless. But these are bullets fired by EXA, which means they only need a moment to take effect. As soon as the poison makes impact, all the Harpies start foaming at the mouth and fall from the sky. Haisen is not doing very well either, and it seems that the effects of using something as powerful as the shotgun take a lot of ether from him. This is an ability he cannot use often. While he tries to recover, a Harpy lunges at him but is struck down by Li Yicheng, who continues to call himself Heisen's rival. But despite Heisen's overwhelming power, things are still not over. And just as Heisen's ether seems to be running out, the final boss monster finally appears. It is a giant harpy with 4 wings instead of 2 and has a physical level of C and another level of S. Fortunately, Haisen has enough ether left to move once more, and that should be enough for him to finish this. He cuts his hand with Hexa, spilling his blood on the ground, then jumps into the air towards the Harpy Queen. He positions himself right in front of her face and delivers a devastating blow, spilling his blood on her and allowing him to activate Black Ether, poisoning her with a poison lethal enough to kill an A-rank knight. Thanks to Heisen's skills and quick action, he managed to defeat the boss and clear the dungeon. Reports will say that everyone survived, but they will also claim that he only provided support and did not actually fight. The guild members don't want to accept that and yell at Haisen, for even thinking of asking them to do something so unfair. He did so much for them and then says he doesn't want a reward, and that's something the guild simply cannot accept. He explains to them that his abilities are too Aries, and he doesn't want them to be leaked to the public, so keeping his secret is reward enough for him. All he wants is for them not to ask who he is. They get emotional about his nobility and want to keep arguing. But Hyzen runs away, using his poisonous steps to get away from them before they can ask him more questions and before they find out that everything he just said is a lie. From the outside, it seems that Hyzen was not getting any benefit from this, but they do not know that he has already taken the greatest reward from the dungeon for himself. He absorbed the harpy's core after killing it without anyone noticing, and that gave him a great power boost. Of course, he couldn't tell them that his motives were actually incredibly greedy. So he made up a false story and ran away as soon as he had the chance. In addition, the harpy's core also gave him a new special ability called Lion's Roar, which can take over his opponent's minds by infusing his voice with ether. In truth, he was the one who benefited the most from everyone on this expedition, and he is only lying to keep up appearances. A few days after the second dungeon incident, Hyzen goes to a place called the Cleaning Clan. Inside, a man sits among a pile of scattered empty beer cans. They all taste horrible, but this is all he can afford right now. The man's name is Yuk Chio Huang, and he is the leader of the Cleaning Clan. His clan has recently been granted authorization to enter poisonous dungeons, and his hope is to find something powerful he has been looking for. Unfortunately, poisonous dungeons are too dangerous for a single hunter to explore alone, and he has no one to go with. He tries to call someone from his younger days to see if he can help. The two friends chat about how life has been for a while, but then the topic of Chio Huang's Cleaning Clan comes up, and the man immediately rejects it. The business does not generate nearly enough money to be sustainable, and there is hardly any profit in entering more poisonous dungeons. Then, his friend reminds him that the thing he has been looking for all this time, the golden sunflower, does not exist. He advises his friend to stop doing such dirty work and give up looking for something that does not exist. Then he ends the call. His friend's words are harsh, but he cannot give up yet. He still has reasons to look for the sunflower even if he has to do this dirty work. While he is thinking to himself, someone knocks on the door. He goes to open the door, forcing a smile on the way, but the smile disappears when he sees the person waiting on the other side of the door. It's Hyzen, someone famous enough for everyone in South Korea to know by now. He is the new S-Rank that appeared and was recognized by the Imperial Tiger. People know him as the mysterious hunter who will one day surpass Maria. The compliments are too much for Hyzen, and he tells the man to calm down as he enters the room. The man asks Hyzen what he is doing there, but the reason should be obvious. He is there to join the clan of cleaning. He doesn't want to join a guild because he hates their senseless restrictions, and they limit him. But with clans, there is much more freedom. For now, he just wants to work with someone who potentially shares his objectives. Yuk Chel Huan can't help but think this must be some kind of dream. Perhaps he fell asleep while drinking beer and is still passed out on the guild's sofa. But this is not a dream, and it is very real. That reality becomes evident when the two men head together to their first poison dungeon as a group. He is dressed in full protective gear due to the toxicity of the poison dungeon, but to his surprise, Hyzen is not wearing any protective armor. He tries to warn him not to carelessly enter a dungeon without protection, but Hyzen assures him that it's fine. If anything happens to his body, then he'll take full responsibility, so there's no reason for Chalguan to worry so much. There's no stopping Hyzen when he's determined, and the two men enter the dungeon with different levels of enthusiasm. The dungeon air is very refreshing for our protagonist, and now Chalguan can't tell what's going on, but he can't complain when he has such an enthusiastic newcomer so eager to work. He hands Hyzen a pickaxe to start harvesting materials, but now isn't the time to mine. First, he has to get rid of the monsters that have started to surround them. This time it's a pack of evil horses, and they're all charging towards them. Normally, these horses are monsters that don't attack unless you invade their territory first, and there are already at least 10 of them. While Chio Huan is scared, Hyzen receives the attack as experience points. The reason the horses are rushing towards them despite not being in their territory is because of the special black market liquid that attracts monsters. He splashed a little on himself before entering the dungeon, and now, thanks to that, he doesn't have to hunt them himself. He kills the horses one by one as they lunge at him, but unfortunately he's careless and some pass by, running towards Chio Huan behind him. The clan leader isn't a coward and can easily eliminate them, without any problem. Chilhwan asks Hyson if he's really a healer. After all, he's too skilled in fighting to be just an ordinary healer. Hyson thinks the clan leader is much more impressive, especially since he's not just C-level. He's actually a B-level knight. It's strange that someone with this skill level would be collecting dungeon products. He must have some kind of deep, hidden story. Now, with the distractions out of the way, collecting their products will be much easier for both of them. But before they can start working, Hyson notices the boss watching them. It's really far, so they have to concentrate to see it, but Hyson can feel its gaze. He tells Cheolwan to continue collecting alone so he can go out and take a look. Then he lunges with incredible speed that even a B-level knight like Cheolwan couldn't match. Hyson keeps running towards where he can feel the boss's presence. And as he runs, he remembers his last conversation with Ojiho. After only a month of training, he has grown enough to barely touch the man's neck. For most people, touching his neck would take more than 10 years of constant practice and training. Now that he's thinking about it, it's almost embarrassing that he once thought Hyson had no talent. Now that he had increased his skill, Ojiho also had to increase the intensity of his training to something much more difficult. During that time, his master once told him that he had already surpassed the night thug they saw in the black market back then. But now he needs to confirm his training and see what the dungeon truly holds for him. He finally finds the boss monster, and it's a humanoid wolf monster, which will be perfect for him to use as a training dummy. It's a monster with a physical level of C and another level of D, with a 3-star difficulty. The two face off, but Hyson is defeated almost too easily by the monster with just one blow. He gets up and they try again, but once again Hyson is easily defeated in combat. For the third round, Cheolwan had caught up with them and is standing nearby, observing the fight. He has finished collecting, and it didn't seem right to interrupt their fight, so he stayed on the sidelines. While they are talking, Hyson is knocked out by a third blow, demonstrating that hand-to-hand combat is too much for him after all. There's an absolute difference in their physical level, and he can't overcome it by normal means. This fight definitely won't be possible for him without mastering the snapback. Hyson's talent and potential are incomparable. It would have taken others 10 years to reach his skill level, but it only took him a few months. All his talents are now above average, even by hunter standards, but he can't master the snapback with talent alone. The talent was created by Yaka and was intentionally made difficult for anyone to learn. Talent is just a basic requirement to learn snapback. For now, he's missing something, and he racks his brain thinking what it could be. Snapback is more an illusory talent than a martial art, and the trick is to mix the real body with a ghost. He can't do it without psychic energy, but his sensitivity to telekinesis increased after absorbing the harpy's core. At the moment Ojiho gave him the message, he had no idea what it meant. But now, this could be his key to snap back. It can't be learned with talent alone. To learn it, you have to understand its principles. Anyone who has seen their opponent use it has fallen into despair after witnessing the haunted martial art, but he was recently able to react to Ojiho's attack, which means he has at least understood it a little, but having the feeling of it is still far from enough. But however impossible it is for a normal person, Hyson is a student of Kirill. That fact alone makes him very different from everyone else, but if he can concentrate his strength, he should be able to do something amazing. The monster lunges at him with a powerful blow, ready to eliminate him once and for all. But to the surprise of the monster and Cheolwan, Hyson appears behind him, completely unharmed by the attack. The dog turns around and attacks again, while Hyson smiles menacingly. He remembers once again what Ojiho taught him. First, he has to adopt his posture and make sure he can move comfortably. Then he has to aim for precision in his posture and focus on his speed and balance. Once he masters all these basic abilities, the opponent's strongest attack will be reflected back onto him. With all those principles mastered, Hyson successfully uses the counterattack on the wolf monster, sending the lethal blow directly to its chest. Cheolwan can only look on in astonishment at the unreal technique Hyson just used. Thanks to that, the Cleaning Clan's first dungeon run was very successful. There were no injuries, and Hyson came out stronger after finding a clue about snapback. The two members continued working together on the next dungeon raid, and although dungeon permits were hard to come by, after Hyson joined the clan, permits came in like an avalanche. That's definitely thanks to the help of the association's chief referee, P.O. Yokyu. The two continue to work together, and although Hyson isn't sure if the man is a friend or an enemy, so far he's done nothing but help him. One thing is certain. The man is definitely not an ordinary association employee. He had also revealed his existence to Chiol Huan some time ago. When he yelled to warn him about an approaching monster, he was almost killed by Chiol Huan for suddenly appearing, but fortunately now they are just close. They are now in their next dungeon and have almost finished clearing it. The boss has already been killed, and Hasten wants to take the opportunity to ask Chiol Huang about some things. Specifically, he wants to know why someone as capable as Chiol Huan does this kind of work. Heisen can tell that the man is especially obsessed with poison dungeons. It's almost as if he's looking for something. After all Heisen has said, Chiol Huan realizes he can't keep his secret much longer. He asks Heisen if he has heard of the legendary flower. It sounds like something out of a fantasy, but it's a flower that is said to be able to cure any illness. Heisen realizes he's talking about the golden sunflower. For something as miraculous as the rare flower, it makes sense that they call it a flower that can cure any disease. Ordinary hunters would never be able to find it, and some wouldn't even believe such a thing exists. But Chiol Huan is sure it exists, and has a reason to find it. There are two types of people who seek the sunflower: those who know of its existence, and those who have no choice but to believe in its existence. Chiol Huan has a wife, whom he unfortunately couldn't protect. She is currently in the hospital, and he wants the sunflower flower in the hope of saving her. He traversed all sorts of dungeons searching for it and did all kinds of work. Over time, his former clanmates left, and he began to doubt if he would ever be able to find it. Hasten interrupts him and asks him directly if he's talking about the golden sunflower. If that's the case, then the reason he hasn't found it is quite obvious. Golden sunflowers die with the dungeon boss, so they need to find them before killing the dungeon boss. There are three types of sunflowers: bronze, silver, and gold. The higher the rank of the flower, the harder it is to find. Heisen has never seen the golden sunflower either, but he knows for sure it exists. These flowers only appear in poison dungeons of 7 stars or higher in rank. Hearing all that, Chiol Huan tells Heisen to stop if he's just trying to give him comfort, but Hasten assures him it's true. Then, to prove it, he shows Chiol Huang the bronze sunflower he got in this dungeon. That's proof that the golden sunflower really exists. Chiol Huan can't help but break down as he realizes that everything he had done so far, and all the work he had put in, wasn't in vain. The man can't help but kneel and cry out in joy at the new information. Heisen sighs upon seeing him. His first impression of Chiol Huan was that he was just an alcoholic hunter, but now it's obvious that he's a sincere and trustworthy person. He extends his hand to help Chiol Huan up and assures him that they will both look for it from now on. Outside the dungeon, at Glow Guild headquarters, Gugun is having a meeting with his secretary to discuss his organization's affairs. From what he's hearing, it seems things are going well so far. But there's something that still worries him: the fact that Jian Huixin still hasn't joined Glory Guild. It's been a long time since he was revealed to be a powerful S-rank healer, but so far they still haven't managed to recruit him. Luckily for them, he hasn't joined any other guild yet, but he's determined not to come to theirs. Gugun smiles and decides it's time to change his approach. He orders the secretary to stop sending people to his house and instead have journalists ready. He'll definitely have to do something if the media is talking about him. The secretary assures him he'll do exactly that, and turns to leave, but Gugun stops him and asks about Maria. The secretary assures him that Maria has been busy these days. That's unusual for her, and a bit worrying for Gugun, but he assumes things will be fine. After all, she's never disappointed him before. Then his mind returns to Heis. Many other hunters have rejected Glory Guild over the years for various reasons. Some were arrogant, and others stubborn. But at the end of the day, everyone returned to them. Last year, there were 3 exceptional B ranks who passed the hunter exam. The Glory Guild was scheduled to take one, while the B-Shop Guild would take the other 2, but the B-Shop Guild hunters changed their minds and joined the Glory Guild. It wasn't revealed to the public, but everyone assumed the Glory Guild had done something behind the scenes. It was around that time that the Glory Guild and the B-Shop Guild had a deterioration in their relationship. The Glory Guild had the power and money to make anyone kneel before them. Being useless in this capitalist society is reason enough to be abandoned, and resisting them is just proof that one has to adapt to their society. But for some reason, Chen Hasim continues to resist the Glory Guild despite all they can offer him. He wants a genuine apology from the president himself. He should know that nothing good will come of making Gugun his enemy. He must have reached a limit in his growth by now, and his desire to become stronger should outweigh his pride. Guogun is sure that eventually his desire to reach an S rank will lead him to the Glory Guild. It's just a matter of time. The next day, Hyson walks down the street and notices someone following him. Very obviously. For now, it's just one person, and they're not doing a good job hiding. He waits until they're right behind him, about to touch him. Then, he appears right behind them in an instant. He's sure whoever this person is must be someone from the Glory Guild, and he's already told them to stop following him. The woman is surprised that he has some kind of illusory abilities, as this wasn't in the report she received. But he's more concerned about who she is and why she's here. She takes off her glasses and apologizes if it looks like she was following him. Then she reveals that she's Maria of the Glory Guild. That surprises Hyson a little, as he didn't expect Maria to personally come to try and recruit him. She apologizes for not informing him that she wanted to see him, but the matter is truly urgent. She wants to know more about him. Hyson takes a moment to grab her by the shoulders, then stares at her intently while asking what exactly she's looking for with this kind of deception. There's no way she just wants to know more about him, and there must be another reason why she's so interested in him. The two head to Gavendong Park, and Maria informs him that the great tiger broke its chains and managed to escape. That's the reason she came to look for him, because she knows that he was the one who healed it. But that doesn't explain why she came to look for him. It's not like she just came to talk about how great it was that the Imperial Tiger escaped. Perhaps they need someone as a scapegoat for its disappearance. Maria assures him that that isn't the purpose of her visit. She saw him heal the tiger and noticed that he was powerful enough to regenerate its core. As soon as she saw that, she knew immediately that he was definitely more powerful in healing than her. Thanks to that, a conversation between them would be beneficial for both of them as healers. Although her reasoning makes sense, he still doubts her true intentions. Everyone in South Korea knows who she is, and although he can see that her intentions are different from Gugong's, she's still a member of the Glory Guild. He knows that his hatred for the guild might be narrow-minded, and perhaps he doesn't know the whole story. But the fact is, she shouldn't have followed him. He points to the child playing alone in the park. He always used to come to play at the park with his mom, and she would sit on a bench and watch him play. She also liked to take a lot of pictures of him, so she carried a camera with her. Now, that same child came to the park alone, and there's no mother with a camera. Insight. Before, when she talked about compensation, the question is, what kind of compensation can they give to a child who has lost his mother? After all that happened due to the Glory Guild's negligence, then she shouldn't have come to Game on Dawn just because she wanted to see him. Elsewhere, Cheo Huang slams his hand on the table while reading an article on the internet. It's talking about Hyson and paints him as a powerful hunter who disappeared and refuses to help people. Cheo Huang boils with anger at the thought of the kind of danger Hyson has been exposing himself to. He can't just sit by and watch people badmouth Cheo Huang. It may not be much, but the best he can do is respond to these articles with comments praising Hyacinth and speaking ill of the Glory Guild. Instead, he sends a text message to Hyacinth, assuring him that he shouldn't worry about anything, but Hyacinth has no idea what the man is talking about. Maria, who has heard enough of Hyacinth's words, gets up and decides to leave. After all, he was right, and the reason she came was completely selfish. Then she apologizes and begins to walk away, covering her face with her cap, ashamed. All his words were completely true, and she couldn't make up an excuse for herself. After all, she couldn't save any of the people who lost their lives while she watched. Her mind returns to the shouts of people who called her a hero. They begged her to save him and came to her for a miracle, but she couldn't save everyone. People blamed her for deaths she couldn't control. Until now, she carries all that guilt within herself. She can't forgive herself for the bloodshed due to her inadequacy. People have tried to comfort her by telling her that she really can't save everyone. But she is someone who has the power to do it. She's a healer who can't even understand pain. As she walks away with her mind tormented by guilt, Hyson runs and grabs her hand, pulling her out of her spiraling thoughts. He tells her that her hand was bleeding, but when they look down at the hand he's holding, it's clean and without injuries. She pulls her hand away in fear and tells him to let go. She was told to keep the self-harm hidden, but it seems she was careless while thinking too much before. Hyson wonders if he was imagining things earlier, but despite that, he can still see her bloody appearance beneath her saintly disguise. Later that night, Maria left, and after what he told her, her face turned pale with shock. She left as if she were fleeing from something or someone. Hyson sits on the bench, thinking about what could have gone wrong, while the boy from before sips an iced drink beside him. The boy thanks Hyesim for playing with him sometimes, especially after losing his mom, but Hyesim tells him he simply had nothing else to do. Then he asks Hyesim if Maria from before is his girlfriend. Hyesim denies it, but that seems to disappoint the boy. They talk a little more, then he plays before Hyesim goes home. The next day, back at Glory Guild headquarters, a group of executives has a meeting with the chief scientist. He wants to show them something that will definitely cause a commotion among them. It's the poisonous poppy, and he claims it's something that will take Glory Guild in a new direction. The others shout at him, surprised he would even mention anything like that, but he tells everyone to calm down. It's the worst illegal drug out there, but he has plans for it, plans that can take Glory Guild to new heights. The others are clearly still against the idea, and one of the executives takes it upon himself to try and shut it down. But a cigarette flies across the room and explodes right in front of him. The owner of the cigarette puts another in his mouth and tells him to stop raising his voice during a meeting. Guggen, who seems very interested in the conversation, orders the man to sit back down and then tells the doctor to continue with his presentation. The doctor gets straight to the point and reveals that, although the drug is dangerous, the poisonous poppy is guaranteed to bring more benefits than drawbacks. The drug provides a greater boost to healing abilities, and a good healer is already a very valuable resource for the guild. One of them asks if that means they'll use the drug on Maria, but Guggen immediately dismisses that idea. She's the symbol of the Glory Guild, and giving her the poisonous poppy is too great a risk. For now, they just need to find a healer who is suitable for the task, and the perfect candidate is UG1. They can lie to the association's vice president and tell him they just want to strengthen the boy. It will also be excellent for their public image, as they'll need to raid more poison dungeons to obtain the plant. Most of the other executives still think it's too dangerous, but their top priority is to ensure the internal stability of the Glory Guild. While they discuss among themselves, the president tells everyone to be silent. Then he orders them to buy all the poison dungeons as quickly as possible. If another clan or guild bought them, they must take them away and do everything possible to make sure Maria doesn't find out. With the president's direct support for the plan, no one can object, and it's decided that they will begin with the poisonous poppy plan. Back at the cleaning clan headquarters, Chiol Huan receives a notification that his requests for poison dungeons are being rejected. The dungeons that no one would agree to take on were now being bought by the district. Hyesim immediately realizes that it's the Glory Guild, and once again they're being a nuisance to him. He decides to call someone he knows will be able to solve the problem. He picks up his phone and calls Pyojiochu, who answers almost immediately. The man is surprised that Hyesim called him first, but seems more than happy to have a conversation.